Hello, I'm Jasmine Iru with Midday News. A new double classroom funded by Digicel PNG Foundation was launched on Friday, June 9, 2023 at Gawakonda Primary School in Simbu Province. Gawakonda Primary School is located in Ward 7 of Gena Waugla LLG of Karawagi District and has 430 students from grades 1 to 8. The school has been operating for 5 years with little infrastructure. School board member and community leader Michael Kill, with the addition of 3 more grades, the school desperately needed a new classroom to cater for the additional students. Construction commenced in February this year and was completed over a period of 3 months at the cost of 350,000 kina. The school and community assisted the construction workers with food and accommodation. This is the 5th primary school double classroom the foundation has built in Simbu. The completed school infrastructure project comes with 2 fully furnished classrooms, inclusive of student desks, whiteboards, pinboards, and teachers' tables and chairs for each classroom. The project also includes a 9,000-liter water tank and an additional 2 900-liter tanks with wash facility for students. The Directorate for Mental Health and Social Change is moving forward with the government's recognizing the position that the mental health services is being taken up within the health services. Chairman of the board of the DMHSC, Cardinal Sir John Ribat, said this is a greatest movement that has happened and he applauded the government to recognize this. He said this during the official launching of the program last month in Port Moresby. Minister for Health and HIV/AIDS, Dr. Lino Tom, who officiated a number of initiatives at the APEC House in Port Moresby, said those who turned up gives hope that the work can be done, despite how massive it is.
Because we've just moved on from addressing COVID, and a lot of our workers, health workers, have actually been, left in isolation. A lot of them had to go all through this mental trauma, and even physical trauma from their families, so to speak. And they've realized that mental health is an important issue that needs to be addressed, especially for health workers, during these times. And I think equally so, I think we, as a government, we really need to give this prominence to mental health.
The supplementary immunization rollout in Rabaul District of East New Britain Province hopes to address the accessibility of maternal and newborn health care to communities as the immunization rollout wraps up this week.
This week, health workers comprising of 10 teams under the Rabaul Provincial Hospital, Gela Gela Health Center and Rabaul Town Urban Clinic are wrapping up the immunization program which kicked off in May. With the low immunization rate in the first 2 weeks due to various factors, families are being urged to bring their children to get immunized. The Gela Gela Health Center has 16 clinic points, Rabaul Urban has 13, and Rabaul Provincial Hospital has 11 clinic points that can be accessed. The Rabaul District Administration, through its DDA, allocated funding through its health facility support to drive the outreach program in the district due to the low coverage in the past years and the need to increase accessibility to these services to the communities. According to schedule, this week will cover mop-up, which includes verification of data collected during the first 2 weeks of the rollout. Ward members and ward development committees have been urged to assist health officers as they move into respective wards to collect vital data to help in future planning and immunization programs. Frida Kana, TVWAN News.
The drug run has picked up momentum lately in the Gulf Province as the local police lack logistics to crack down on drug smugglers. In the space of 2 weeks, police have apprehended suspects transporting huge amount of marijuana in Malalawa and Kikori.
Police station has not had a vehicle for the last 3 months due to their old Toyota Land Cruiser being in police workshop for repairs in NCD. Provincial Police Commander Chief Inspector Jeffrey Lem says people in the drug business are smart. Now that they're aware that the station is without a vehicle, the number of dealers and drug activities have heightened. Provincial authorities have promised to provide a temporary relief vehicle, but this hasn't materialized. So far, there have been 3 major drug busts in the province from searches done at the Malalawa Station checkpoint. Gulf police are seeking assistance from the police headquarters to help fight the escalating drug issue. Salome Vincent, TV1 News.
Prime Minister James Marape has affirmed that the pertinent details concerning the proposed gold refinery will be made available to stakeholders and the public. His response comes following a successful Supreme Court stay that was secured by state lawyers after a national court order was sought by Golden Valley Enterprises Limited.
Despite the Supreme Court issuing a stay order on the national court order, the government will still provide relevant information on the gold bullion project for public interest and transparency. Prime Minister James Marape said as a responsible government, it is committed to providing all stakeholders and Golden Valley Enterprises with the necessary information pertaining to the project and its scope. This commitment is not intended to question the National Executive Council process. Marape emphasized that the disclosure would encompass crucial aspects such as the genesis of the project, the identities of the project proponents, and the project scope. Salome Vincent, TV1 News.
To news in the region, the bus driver charged over the deadly Hunter Valley crash in New South Wales has been granted bail. A magistrate allowed him to leave custody for now, but said the prosecution had a strong case against him. The court heard how the 58-year-old engaged in a prolonged period of dangerous driving that ended in 10 deaths.
From obscurity to the centre of a national tragedy, bus driver Brett Andrew Button is staring down the possibility of years in prison.
Mr. Button, how have you been pleading to the charges?
9 people died at the scene of Sunday night's crash and a 10th died in hospital. Cessnock Court heard the prosecution case against Mr Button for 10 counts of dangerous driving causing death was strong.
He entered that roundabout driving in a manner that was inconsistent with the conditions. Obviously, the speed was too quick for him to negotiate that roundabout.
The victims were mostly young, many from the Hunter, some connected by their love of AFL, brought together to celebrate the wedding of a local couple. In Canberra, question time came to a standstill.
Today we pause as a parliament to mark a loss beyond words, a tragedy beyond comprehension.
The profound national sadness which surrounds this terrible event comes from a deep human empathy.
The tragedy is almost overwhelming for many people, but there's also a sense of coming together and wanting to support each other.
35 wedding guests were on board the bus, having left Wandin Valley Estate late in the foggy night, bound for Singleton. It rolled onto its side and into a guardrail. 10 witnesses have provided evidence of prolonged, dangerous driving before the crash. It's also alleged the driver told passengers to fasten their seatbelts during that time. Police opposed bail, but in the end, it was granted.
Look, I've spoken with my client. He's happy to be going home. That's all I've got to say. In all of the circumstances, he's holding up very well.
The magistrate acknowledged the suffering of families, loved ones and the community, but also the bus driver himself, who could end up facing further charges.
The Australian Army has undergone a major change to how it trains for conflict, with soldiers spending more time on the water as Australia focuses on the role of defence in the Indo-Pacific region. Water-based exercises are being given greater importance as part of the ADF's shift. The change is in line with the Australian government's Defence Strategic Review, which highlights China military build-up and the importance of the Indo-Pacific as the geostrategic region. Commanders say it will also allow smoother deployment in natural disasters like floods. In sports, cricket PNG under-19 Garamuts men's cricket team, supported by Pacific Oz Sports, put behind their loss against Fiji on Tuesday to comfortably win over Western Samoa in the second match of the ICC EAP World Cup qualifying tournament in Darwin. The Garamuts won by 104 runs. Man of the match was top scorer Don C. Tom of Parry Village with 81 runs. The Papua New Guinea Kickboxing Federation is making a comeback after a 4-year absence. With the successful hosting of a national fight event, the federation has set sights on a couple of international bouts.
The Clash of the Regions showdown held recently showcased fighters from the Highlands region and Port Moresby. This is the start of more bouts as the PNG Kickboxing Federation makes a comeback with several fight stages set for local fighters. PNG Kickboxing Federation President Stanley Nandex praised the Clash of the Regions fight as a huge success.
It was a good turnout. I'm so impressed to see a lot of also female taking part as well. And
championships in Italy from October 26th to the 29th and another set for France in 2024.
I think it will be a first time to take a team of MMA fighters, and I think we already have some fighters here in PNG that we would probably showcase.
In getting things in tune, the Kickboxing Federation will send 4 officials to a world seminar for referees. This is a lift for the code of kickboxing in the country. Salome Vincent, TV1 Sports.
PNG champion boxer Junior Raka believes that he will have a strong chance to own the ring if he trains in the Philippines ahead of his fight in Vietnam next month. He has been training at his local gym in Port Moresby. Philippines has one of the world's best boxing training facilities. To train there, he is now seeking sponsorship in order to get there and ready himself for Vietnam. He has begun efforts to raise funds, starting with fundraising dinner. Raka thanked Zomin Group of Companies for its continuous support in the past few years. He extends his gratitude also to Regional MP for the Autonomous Region of Bougainville, Peter Siamalili, for expressing support. The PNG champion boxer anticipates he will proudly fly the red, black and gold flag in Vietnam. And that ends the midday news. More to come at 6 this evening. We'll head straight to Parliament.
I think both should be debated together properly, and the suggestion by the House and Minister to defer it to a later date is one worth considering. Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker. Honourable members, the Honourable Member Fayali Pupangia, your point of order is in order. I'll allow the good opposition leader to continue with his debate. Sorry. After the opposition leader will ask the leader of government business to adjourn the debate to next sitting, to a later date. Member
I think it's
Green?
Practice and in accordance with the standing orders. When a statement like this is presented, it needs to be debated, and we can continue the debate to a later date. Some of us want to make a debate on this paper, especially myself. So we can debate. Those who want to debate, they debate. If they want to debate later, we can adjourn it to the later date. Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker.
Member for Wanema Green, your point of order is in order, but in the interest of other leaders in the House, we'll allow the opposition leader to continue Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker. We need to know the details of this agreement. For instance, what ships or airplanes are we allowing to use our airspace and our ports and our airports? Will they be carrying nuclear weapons? Or will they be use our airspace and soil to do surveillance or covert spying operations? These are the issues that we need to know, the details. If so, wouldn't this breach our other international commitments, such as to the Rarotonga Treaty and the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons? Mr. Acting Speaker, in these two treaties which Papua New Guinea has signed, we agreed to prevent the spread of nuclear weapons. The Rarotonga Treaty goes further to prevent the placement of nuclear weapons within the South Pacific. We already have these international treaties, Mr. Acting Speaker, that we should always respect and uphold. Mr. Assistant Speaker, signing this Defence Cooperation Treaty cannot be seen as a stabilizing factor in Papua New Guinea and the South Pacific region, but rather it has brought us into a dangerous geopolitical game. The greater the United States' presence in Papua New Guinea may be seen as provocative towards China. We see the rise in tension between China and its allies over Taiwan and its claims in the South China Sea, also islands, also Japan. And this tension has engulfed our neighbors, the Philippines, Japan, Indonesia, Malaysia, among other countries. Then just next door to us, the Solomon Islands have signed an agreement with China, which has raised serious concerns in the United States and from its allies. Mr. Assistant Speaker, the rivalry between China and the United States is both military and economic. And we as a nation are caught up in it by signing this defense cooperation agreement. China is our second largest trading partner. Our economy needs Chinese trade, investments, and financing. Have we assessed how China will react to the increased US presence in Papua New Guinea? Then again, why is the United States, after absent for almost last 50 years, suddenly has now an interest in Papua New Guinea? Mr. Assistant Speaker, the Pacific makes up 20% of the Earth's total area and 28% of all economic exclusive zones. We are situated right between the United States and Australia. And so by having a base in PNG is a game changer. The US cannot have direct access to Australia, South China Sea, and control a major trading route. We have the resources, Mr. Assistant Speaker. The Pacific has the most fertile fishing grounds in the world. It has 70% of the world catch, and our greatest asset is fish. And that is the reason why China is interested. 1/3 of the world's fish production comes from China. It is also the world's largest consumer of fish. So if you control the Pacific, you control the fishing. And China, with 1.5 billion people, close to 2 billion to feed, they need access to the Pacific and their fish, Mr. Assistant Speaker. By signing this military agreement with Papua New Guinea, it now gives the United States political and military dominance over the Pacific. It gives United States special rights, which we are granting to them. And Papua New Guinea relinquishes its sovereignty, giving the United States unprecedented access to the country's land, sea, and airspace without being subjected to the Constitution and the laws of the country. Mr. Acting Assistant Speaker.
Point of order. Prime Minister, your point of order.
Let me, whilst he's made mention in the line of Papua New Guinea compromising or sacrificing our sovereignty, far from it, this agreement does not require Papua New Guinea to compromise our sovereignty. Our sovereignty is maintained. This agreement comes within the context of our constitution. Thank you.
Point of order. Continue.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker. I stand to be corrected. The Pacific controls vast amounts of the ocean. In the event of a war between America and China, the Pacific will play a key role. And it has happened before during the Second World War. Japan and the United States fought for the Pacific. And the US won and went on to dominate this region through its allies. General MacArthur, who commanded the Pacific Fleet for the Allied forces in this part of the region in 1942, led the fight against the Japanese advancement. Mr. Assistant Speaker. Our meeting took place in Sydney in 1942, where it was agreed that war should never be fought on Australian soil. It must be fought in the trust territory of Papua New Guinea. The Japanese was halted here on PNG soil because we had nothing to do with it. No one consulted us. Our ancestors woke up one morning and saw planes, bullets flying, bombs, and many, for the first time, saw white men. But this is not 1942, Mr. Assistant Speaker. Now we are an independent nation. We should never be led into such a situation again. We should never allow war to be fought on our soil again. The defense agreement with PNG is similar to the ones it has signed in South Korea, Japan, Philippines, Indonesia, among other countries. Therefore, I do not believe that the United States will not use PNG to wage its war. It is unfortunate that we have not learned from our past to guide our future, Mr. Assistant Speaker. The rivalry between China and the United States is both military and economic. And we as a nation are caught up in it by signing this defense cooperation agreement. Mr. Assistant Speaker, our priority is not big power rivalries. Our people want jobs, better infrastructure. We are most vulnerable to climate change. The oceans rise and our people are affected. China wants resources and military bases in the Pacific. The US wants to dominate the Pacific. Papua New Guinea and the Pacific people are caught in between. This is the global geopolitical politics. We must know these things, Mr. Assistant Speaker. We have harmed our international relations with the Pacific Island states when we turn our back on our international commitments to the Rarotonga Treaty and the Treaty on Non-Proliferation on Nuclear Weapons. We have turned our back on our foreign policy interests. This is a tragedy, Mr. Acting Speaker, caused by this government when it signed the military agreement with the United States. What is wrong? We can borrow billions of kina and modernize our military. We can train our own military. We can expand our horizons. We can purchase Navy destroyers and battleships to patrol our huge maritime boundaries to stop illegal fishing and smuggling, Mr. Acting Speaker. We do not need the United States to assist us with this. For 15 years under the Ship Riders Agreement, and then what? Next. We need to get our priorities right, Mr. Assistant Speaker, and start investing now if we feel this is an important area in our defense budget that we have missed for years. We need to stop sending more than 30 people to climate change conference every year and wasting public monies. We need to start actioning climate issues that is confronting our nation. This should be our priority as a developing country. We should invest billions of kina each year in fisheries sector, in our manufacturing industries, in power generation across our country. Mr. Assistant Speaker, it is obvious that this agreement with the United States says it failed to consider our nation's bilateral relations relating to investments, foreign aid, and trade interests. It will harm our international standing with the Pacific Island states in protecting the interests of its peoples, in promoting peace and prosperity in this part of the region. This agreement directly contravenes our foreign policy interests, and the opposition has resolved not to support this defense agreement with the United States. We feel it is badly negotiated. We have lost a party to this. We lose as a party to this agreement, and we will be studying this agreement further. And we will not hesitate to the courts to have this agreement thrown out if there's anything illegal or unconstitutional about it. Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker.
Honourable Member for Wanneroo Green.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker. Mr. Assistant Speaker, me like highly commend him, Prime Minister, for this statement blame the Defense Cooperation Agreement. Namelo Papua New Guinea want them United States of America. Mr. Assistant Speaker, while my committee, the Permanent Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Affairs, International Trade, Immigration and Defense, been got preview along this agreement, but by just looking at it and following the Prime Minister on the statement, I believe this is the best agreement that our country has ever entered into. It is the best agreement in the sense that the United States of America will help us build our force. Right now, our force readiness is not there. We have since late 1990s, we have decreased our defense force to just 2,000 men. And I know, and I commend the previous government of Prime Minister O'Neill then, and now Prime Minister Marape, for trying to beef up our force so that we give strength to our defense force. This agreement, Mr. Assistant Speaker, will help build our force. Our country is recognized and it becomes sovereign when we have a strong military. If we do not have a strong military, we forget ourselves as a country. We are the only country within this region that has a common land border with a populous Muslim population in Indonesia. And how prepared are we as a country? We have a defense agreement, defense cooperation agreement with Australia. We never debate like this. We allowed it to happen. But the question is, how has that defense cooperation agreement helped us as a country? I believe this is the best agreement. And we should embrace it as a country. My only question, Mr. Assistant Speaker, is, are we ready as a country? You see, is the defense force ready with policy and legislation? Where is the defense force posted? How do we see our defense force aligned with the Vision 2050? How do we see our defense force to be in 2050? That is the role of the defense minister, defense secretary, and the defense commander. Have we had our defense white paper signed prior to entering into this agreement? And goes to the Foreign Affairs Department. Have we got our Foreign Affairs white paper signed? I believe not. So in terms of policy and legislative alignment, we are not there yet as a country. And maybe this agreement will now trigger those two important departments. What makes a country is foreign affairs and defense. That's our sovereignty. And I want to thank the Prime Minister for his leadership in ensuring that we sign this important agreement with the US. You know, in the agreement, they're going to bring in military assets. And that's why I'm saying, is the defense force ready? We are going to have to train our men to be able to handle the latest of defense armory, the defense armament, the arsenals. There's nothing wrong with us building our defense force. We have our territorial waters to protect. We have our land borders to protect. Many a times I come to this floor of parliament complaining about the Indonesians encroaching into our border. I am 100% in support of this agreement. And if you don't know, US has one of the best satellite systems, the Elbit systems that was manufactured by the Israelis. They are using the Elbit system. And PNG government and the defense force, the fisheries, can enter into the agreement to lease their satellite space. So we have the surveillance of our territorial waters, of our land borders, of the illegal logging that's taking place in this country, illegal fishing that's taking place in this country, of the illegal trade of firearms, drugs along the border, human smuggling. This is not a bad agreement. It's a very good agreement for us as a country. We need to build our force, so we have the force readiness, either to deploy to United Nations or to be aid to civil power within our country, to respond to national disaster emergencies. Right now, we do not have the capability and the capacity, but through this agreement, I can tell you, US will come here and will transform our defense force. But the question is the defense force ready? Is the country ready to embrace this change that's going to take place? I'm all for it, Mr. Assistant Speaker. I am all for this agreement. The other issue is this. This will also bring in foreign currency into our country. And you will see that our foreign exchange issues will no longer be there. When US comes here, they bring in US dollar. Prime Minister said it will not affect other countries. It doesn't stop or shut the door to having agreement with China, with other countries. No, it doesn't say that. We are open. We are friends to all, enemy to none. But as a sovereign nation, we must build our defense force so that we protect our sovereign territorial waters and our land border. Only a few days ago, the governor for Western Province asked a question about how our soldiers are behaving. When we have this agreement and when we are going to send our defense force, we will have a professional defense force that is ready. Mr. Deputy Speaker, Mr. Assistant Speaker, I see also, the one question that many of us were asking and the nation protested against, and I wished the Foreign Affairs Department and the Defense Department had given me the agreement earlier as a chairman of the Permanent Parliamentary Committee. There wouldn't have been a strike at the university. We would have gone out there and did our awareness so that we suppress unnecessary and unnecessary claims that this defense cooperation program is bad for the country. Our defense force has gone down really bad in terms of discipline. And maybe through this defense force cooperation agreement, we will see the standard of our discipline go up. And we will be able to send our defense force personnel to train with the Americans at a high standard. And this will also lift the game for our closest neighbor, Australians. They also must give us the same kind of benefit. They have not. Instead, they try to serve in the security treaty that gives them immunity. And we are not going to entertain that security treaty until we sort out what's Australia's contribution to Papua New Guinea Defence Force. Australia has only one colony. That's Papua New Guinea. Why does it down to the Defence Force? While I appreciate that our young men and women go down and train in the Royal Military College like myself, but we need them to help us to develop our defense force. They must see us as a friend and not as an enemy. I am really happy that, and I've had discussions with the U.S. Embassy. They're going to bring in military hardware, and they're just going to donate to us. That's very gracious. Mr. Assistant Speaker, one other point that I want to put here, and because it's a working document, it has a life of 15 years. What I want to do, what I want the government to also do is capitalize on this. Maybe we should get the C-130s to start exporting our tuna, live tuna, the big American Air Force planes. Maybe we can use those planes to start exporting our potato. We should start making agreements with America to buy our potatoes, to buy our coffee, to buy our pineapple, and export them in the big aircrafts. We should capitalize on this as a country. We try to export our stuff, our food stuff to Australia, but there's too many restrictions. Maybe it's high time. It's high time that we capitalize on this defense cooperation agreement and make it into something good, both for our defense force and for our economy as a country. I want to touch a bit on the ship rider agreement, and I know Prime Minister will speak on it. Don't make no mistake. The ship rider agreement is a very good agreement. And in that agreement, it says that when they are operating with the Papua New Guineans, and if a Papua New Guinean captain is capturing that particular vessel, that vessel, for that period of time, becomes the vessel of Papua New Guinea. That's the beauty. It carries the PNG flag. So it's not just the Americans who are going to be driving those vessels. There's a provision in the agreement that when they train the Papua New Guineans, they will also drive those vessels. We should all support it. We should all embrace it. We are reaching 50 years as a country. Where is our defense force now? Where is our police force? And I want to support also the call by Governor Fuenga, who is always complaining about the police force. Maybe we will also need to go into that space. And Prime Minister, I made some proposal about PNG introducing a Ministry of Homeland Security. We have to have the Ministry of Homeland Security. This will address the law and order situation in our country. If we have the Homeland Security, you have the best from the Defense Force, from the Police Force, from the Immigrations, from Customs, from Foreign Affairs, operating together. And I believe by doing all these things, we will be able to minimize the level of crime that's going on in our country. And with our surveillance system, we will be able to pinpoint. And with this Defense Force agreement, when we know that there is illegal fishing going on, you stay in here, you just direct the planes, you just direct the ships to catch those illegal ships that's fishing on our waters. This is the beauty about this agreement. Mr. Assistant Speaker, I want to fully support this agreement, and I believe I want us to get our Defense Force and the Foreign Affairs Ministries, the fisheries, and I see a lot of hardworking officers in the fisheries. I had a visit to Fisheries Minister. The greater beneficiary of this agreement is us as a country. The fisheries will have a better surveillance system. Defense Force will have a better surveillance system. We as a nation will have a better surveillance system. That is non-existent in our country now. Through this agreement, we will be able to have these systems in place so that we can be seen as a country and not some other place on earth where people come and steal our resources. This will also help us in the space of climate change, carbon credits. There's a lot of benefits. But the question boils down to us as a country. Are we ready? Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker.
Governor for NCD.
Thank you, Assistant Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to debate on this very important agreement that government have signed with the United States of America. Maybe I try more to talk pidgin, so you can understand him too, especially all people believe me. I think number one, something we like to thank you, long Prime Minister, government, long taking initiative to sign this defense cooperation agreement. But I think, side me or some, thinking about our country and thinking about security and thinking about the economic. I think me like talk of some, you must think twice. Really about this agreement that we are signing and think about whether it's going to benefit our country in the long run or you may make him assumption, nothing. Me understand him, talk long, member long, Vanimo Green, defense, US only got the big capacity. They are most powerful military nation in the world. The agreement, does it guarantee that all by Kamna building capacity blow defense force blow you and if so, in what ways all by come building capacity blow defense force blow you and is this the purpose of this agreement? There is you me too long talk to about civilians blow you in terms of illegal activities, illegal fishing, illegal export of logs and so on. Does this agreement also covers this aspect and we are certain about it or you may make him assumptions as well? Now, me like raising all this like concern so that you can understand him, the pros and cons of such agreement. Me understanding America is a great powerful economic and military power. A lot of things they can do and support us with this power that they have. But the fact of the matter is this, Mr. Assistant Speaker. In the last how many years since independence, U.S. has been absent from Papua New Guinea. Absent in a lot of areas. Economically, they have been absent. Until now, ExxonMobil, one of their big corporate giants, have come, now invest in here. And then suddenly, U.S. is becoming interested now, trying to reach out to us as a country, as a people. But for the major part of our history in these 48 years, U.S. has been absent.
We have a point of order, Governor Fensiri.
The Minister for Defense, it's true that leadership, Amre is taking long to sign
Minister for Defense
cooperation agreement.
Minister for Defense, I'll interrupt. The chair has not given you the opportunity to speak, and I put all of you on notice. Chair Bagim Toko right. You can raise up and give a point of order. Minister for Defense.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. My apology. My point of order is that take too long as a defense minister on behalf of Foreign Affairs Minister and Prime Minister. It's all about the leadership. Some of us, we are taking this leadership and then bring America here. In this honorable house, me not like him to take long, because this is honorable house where you speaking. Me, sometimes we talk long, kissing this long defense cooperation agreement. And then also, my point of order is that enough you may give acting speaker, enough you may give time to the Prime Minister law, give him civil rights percent, because me looking for our constant debate and we work long. Mix one
Minister for Defense
cooperation agreement and also civil rights.
Minister for Defense.
Enough you may give time long and we can give, because the debate acting speaker that we look for the debate and we look for civil rights.
Minister for Defense, take your seat.
Thank you.
Tok Luya and Lucas, you give him Narapla debate. You know, raising point of order. So, suppose you like raising point of order, next point of order you can, in a debate form, you by me giving Tokorat you behind time. Check about look you look debate. But for now, Chair ruling must point of order you am all right, but out of order. Honorable Governor.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. You may by debate, you may work debate, yeah. Minister too can debate behind time. Me work just giving me cautious to give a different perspective or two perspectives so that you may can look him, understand him good. There are positive, outcomes we can achieve, but there are risks too. You may not can ignore him risk. This is what I'm trying to put forward to all of us, this honorable parliament, all people below me. US and Mitokia, me work long explaining. They've been, engaging with perhaps our military to some extent for all these 48 years or 47 years, but not in a substantive way. In the area of aid development too, almost invisible. Capacity belong before too, only reducing capacity in terms of, their embassy presence, technical and whatever support come Loyumi. Suddenly now, the US is, after ExxonMobil come now, and all this geopolitical dispute with China now, all got interest don't come inside and we sign this defense cooperation agreement with them. You must think this too. In terms of defense now, you may work to defend the country, member vulnerable green talk. Now, every day security analysis of our potential enemy or not? Who are we going to fight with? Why are we going to build our defense force for what? Are we intending to go to war against some other countries? So I can't see us going to war with Solomon or going to war with China. How are we going to war with Philippines? So? And if we are thinking that our enemy or potential enemy might be Indonesia, hey, you may also got, we have a defense cooperation agreement with Indonesia. We are going to ratify a border agreement with Indonesia. We are building so many links with Indonesia. So what is the, need of building defense force? Me look him, need me. The biggest challenge me is internal security. Now, yeah? We should be focusing on building our police force and its capacity to meet local, security challenge. This, agreement to elevate one time US here, it definitely by putting me in the spotlight of this geopolitical, conflict. And it's not me like, thinking strong long and to really deeply about how we are positioning ourselves. Do we want to be caught up in this geopolitical dispute? And then looking at the reality, China is our, third largest trading partner. How are we going to risk that? For what? So I mean, like, thinking about this seriously. Yeah? Just because US is a big military power, it's a big economic power, but our relationship with them economically, I'm in a big platumbasia until ExxonMobil. After Exxon now, will they come and invest here for real? Will they set up manufacturing here for real? And you may get some assumption here. And I just want to ask to raise this assumption that we have, that you may work having this assumption, and we are putting ourselves in this situation where the liability or the risk might be higher than the gain. If US is going to come for real and really build our capacity, build internal capacity to deal with emergency or to deal with our, tracking, illegal activities, well and good. But if it's just simply heightened us in the terms of geopolitics, then I think you must thinking good Lodislana, really balance it. Perhaps that's what I want to suggest to all of us. And I want us to think about balancing this because in terms of economic interest, we don't have a status of force agreement with even China. We have a status of force with Australia. Now we've elevated to defense cooperation agreement. We have status of force with Indonesia. We've elevated to a defense cooperation agreement. We have status of force with UK, faraway place. With France, faraway place. With Germany, faraway place. What's the level of interaction we have with these European countries in terms of economics and interest? We have a big economic interest and other interests with China. We don't even have a status of force agreement with them. And if you look at the geopolitics now, around the Pacific, around the world, the US has so many military bases. Now the US is projecting China as an aggressive country, militarily and everything else, or other things. But if you look at the reality, it's the US who have got military base around China, in the Philippines, in Japan, in Korea, in Guam, in Australia, maybe with Singapore and other countries too, in the Asia and Pacific region. China got military base in Wanama. Everybody talk signing agreement with Solomon. I'm not sure about that. I have not seen the details of it. But the chances are of a military base between China and Solomon, I think it's almost nil. Talk nothing. It's heightened, geopolitical war game that is going on. So my point is that by signing this agreement, it got some valid point on it, but it's placed us in this geopolitical dimension or equation or narrative that it gives us certain risk. Some risk the leader of the opposition raised. We need to, reaffirm our position as quickly that we don't want to participate in this geopolitical tension and war games and, whatever that goes on with it. It might result in actual war. It might not. So, Mr. Assistant Speaker, my contribution is, based on this understanding or look me looking where US go. Me looking historically, US don't got too much friends here. They don't have too much friends. What do? They follow, they promote their interests. If you look around the world, the US has more interest than perhaps friends. And in this equation in the Pacific, me looking history blow, country blow, have they been considering us as real friends? Real friends, good times, bad times, they stay with us. Are they here because of being friendly with us, really want to partner us to develop our country, to improve infrastructure and services, to do all this, monitoring and arresting and containing illegal activities, so they're coming here for their interests. So, me like questioning you, so you make a balanced view. Because I think sometimes you may go lopsided. This is my contribution to this debate. We have signed it already. There's a undertaking that PNG law applies. We have to read the small prints. And just putting my legal cap on, me look, small prints here. Yes, we have not given them immunity, but who is the jurisdiction if they commit crimes? Will they be charged in here or they charged in US? And you all know the dynamics of that. Americans are charging online belong to us. It's in the smaller prints. So we want to partner this big economic military giant. Let's understand and be clear what we want to get and what we will get from it. And let's look at it from two perspectives so we make a decision. You mean signing pennies? Let's make it work. For real, all I help me, let's make it work and they deliver. Let's remind ourselves of the risk, mitigate the risk. Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker.
Minister for Highways and Works.
Thank you, Assistant Speaker. Me too, like Adam Sampler, clinical statement on top law. Split debate, me join him all, cube law, not law members. He got, if on his was stop the defense, but you understand him. This plus DCA agreement. DCA agreement, he got triple agreement where all military place have he got SOFA agreement, DCA, na treaty. Now this plus DCA agreement where Prime Minister Emi Togorait law, all his me signing on the US is the best agreement. Any agreement into this country will have to be from a Prime Minister or from a minister for certain sectors. This plus DCA, I mean, no law harming sovereignty plus the country, but purely belong exercise belong all army defense law uplift him now come up him robust, give him strong law defense from the Papua New Guinea. Time you look at one statement law number page 3 law Prime Minister. After some defense cooperation agreement, now also law ship rider agreement. And within you got tupla military blomibla got sea, land, na all air. So US agreement that Mipla signed, the best agreement. US You know, anyone blood, this year want the Papua New Guinea Defense Force because it's up to us to invite a country who has military to come in, to partner. Want a one country, exchange him, now upskill him, all exchange him military exercise, now military experience will come. The countries, you got SOFA, want them PNC Defense Force, you got DCA, want them PNC Defense Force, but Nipla, lo US, Nipla Indogat. Osem na displa agreement, and me like congratulate the Prime Minister, na me like talk him one bla good la decision na me make him, lo kiss him US defense come, na start work on them US PNC defense, lo upskill him, na upgrade him military blom Nipla lo Papua New Guinea. So I mean no wrong. It's nothing to do with sovereignty of the country. This law line come lo Papua New Guinea, all come inside the law blo mibla. Defense got white paper to army staff. Where army staff were protecting, they say guide him all army, honorable country lo come inside. Na give him training, na give him work. Ista want them all army, na government lo Papua New Guinea. That's why me like snap lo here, na me like talk. Me former defense minister, me talk thank you lo Peter O'Neill, sorry me go. Come up defense minister na mi play been start talk. Slow display. But mi play no progression. But I need no time long. Honorable James Morabel or Prime Minister na leadership long and mi progression display. I mean no wrong. I mean no habla hamin isla country. I military. So display agreement mi good plan. One like example me like talk. Papua New Guinea me got the best military trained pilots who went to fly in Saudi Arabia and some of the countries around the world, trained by military. Today, you can't find any more pilots. Today, you can't see any more. PNC Defense Force, you don't have to train any more pilots. Papua New Guinea, 8 million, 10 million people, but we have only 6 or 8 chopper pilots. 6 or 8 chopper pilots. Long Navy blow Mipla got Navy only staff. But only not got big plus ship. Driving big plus ship. Now ship, write agreement. Best agreement. One per day, all military blah through long Navy, he can drive him all big plus ship too. So this agreement no good. This agreement good agreement. You know wrong long end. I mean like talk thank you Prime Minister put him this plan. On top of this plan long end, suppose 25 or 30,000 military only come stop Papua New Guinea now only spread. Some go engineer battalion, some go navy, some go infantry, because you got can section of military too. Engineering. If 25 or 30,000 military in Papua New Guinea, one fortnight, you're looking at 3 to 4 million US into Papua New Guinea, because they are living in Papua New Guinea. Do you imagine that? That's the good about this one too as well. And they won't go shopping outside, they're shopping into supermarkets, or they go and shop around the stores, or they go to markets. Or go to bank now, or rouse in case now, they go and throw it on the market. So they are investing. You can see the difference. So, all military blah blah blah. We have 1,000 soldiers at Mari Barracks. One fortnight is about 2 or 3, 6 or 7, 800, even 1 million goes into Mari Barracks. Every fortnight. Every fortnight. So it is like that. US, 25,000 people, soldiers, military, come start now they spread to everywhere around Papua New Guinea. one plus fortnight, all put in by looking big money bowling out, now they will use that money in this country. And these are some of the good things that will come after them. All geopolitics, plus Chinese, na US, anything they want to do, they go back to China and they talk about US. They go to US and they talk about it. In PNG, people got country, people got law, people got law. They will have to respect our law. So, I'm also something me looking as former Minister of Defense, now me looking good through. Now me negotiate this plan, me talk on the defense and one big plan department where he got sea, he got land engineering, all kind of section and stuff. All this line come to ball is spread law, kind of section. Now all by give him support law, all military. So it's only to do with military. So this agreement is the best agreement. After all, me like making big talk.
Honorable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that further debates be made order of the day for a subsequent sitting, and I'd like to move to the SIP right agreement, if you please.
The question is that the debate be put, that motion be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those not in favor, the ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to statute, I present the SIP Riders Agreement between the government of the independent state of Papua New Guinea and the government of the United States of America. Mr. Speaker, I ask Leave of Parliament to make a statement in connection with the agreements.
Is leave granted? Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for giving me this moment, and I just want to also thank all members of Parliament again for sitting through lunch to attend to important national duties. I note members of Parliament want to speak on the earlier Defence Cooperation Agreement, and I want to appreciate you for allowing me to raise a time slot later in a subsequent sitting. In fact, in the interest of time and for managing Parliament, if I present after a presentation of this one, members of Parliament are encouraged to join their statement, and it will give a complete picture in respect to how we are undertaking our relationship, our strategic relationship with the United States of America going forward. And from the outset, let me assure everyone that these two back-to-back agreements signed does not in any way, shape or form compromise our foreign relationship with other nations, closer to home or far from home. We realize, and this is done in complete sync and in harmony with our principle of friends to all, enemies to none, Mr. Assistant Speaker. I note the uneasiness on many of our constituents, many stakeholders, many of our bilateral partners, and of course, many of our leaders on the uncertainty and uneasiness such a relationship would cause us. Such a relationship would cause us. Mr. Assistant Speaker, let me also assure us, this agreement is not just unique to Papua New Guinea. This is a common agreement that USA and all nations, in fact, all nations have with every other nation they feel strategically they must relate to. Every foreign relations has specific element of how we relate to one or another. Trade relations, public service relations, defense relations. This embodies the total foreign relationship we have with all nations. And on the common issue with, for instance, the geopolitics of contemporary geopolitics, Mr. Assistant Speaker, let me inform this House, and 15 years from today, members of Parliament 15 years from today will look back, and I am willing to take all the blame for anything that goes wrong in our country in as far as this defense cooperation and the SIP rider is concerned. And as the nation stand back 15 years from today and look back, leadership is all about making calls. And hopefully we make the right call. For not to make such call is not leadership at all. And we relate to all, and I want to say to all from the outset, these agreements with USA does not compromise our relationship with China per se, with Indonesia, with Philippines, with South Korea, with Japan, with Australia, with New Zealand, with the Pacific. The agreement was carved out in a way where we preserved all our relationship, military or otherwise, with every other nation, and we carved it out just with USA on what is important. We felt with our PNG national interest at heart. Principally, our national interest lies in capacitating our own defense force, building up our own defense force, and ensuring that they are responding to the task of protecting our sovereignty. As I said earlier, Mr. Assistant Speaker, today you ask me if someone has an incursion in our borders, and God forbid, I have no assurance to give that our defense force will rise up to protect our borders. That is a sad reality. Mr. Assistant Speaker, we cannot get any better than an informed statement from the Honourable Member for Wainumu Green, a former senior serving member of our defense force, on the dilapidated state of not just the infrastructure, but the capacity, manpower, and ability of our defense to defend our sovereignty. Some nations we relate with commercially. Some nations we relate with in defense. Some nations we relate with in other capacity area. That is the call of government to make on and for behalf of our people. Mr. Assistant Speaker, I just want to also inform this House, including our opposition leader and others who spoke, and I can understand that they were just presented with this, with the agreement. Borrowing on the Honourable Member for Wainumu Green's line, he used a line like this. I don't know when there was the last time this Parliament was ever presented with the Status of Force Agreement in 1989, or even the Australian Defence Cooperation Agreement that we signed after, or the Indonesian Defence Force Cooperation Agreement we signed after. I will look into the archives of our government whether this Parliament has ever, and the clerk, you can assist us, Mr. Assistant Speaker, whether Parliament was ever privy for and on behalf of people, privy and be transparent to this sort of agreement. I've been in Parliament for the last 15, now 16, 17 years now, and no Parliament has ever been transparently presented with the works of the executive government. Some issues are works of the executive government. The nation must trust the entire system of government to process what needs to be processed. And if there is an issue that is felt to be attained to, the fathers of our country, and by the way, Pangu celebrated 56 years yesterday. Pangu Party celebrated 56 years yesterday, Mr. Assistant Speaker. I have to make reference to Pangu Party because I stand as leader of Pangu Party. This is the party that born this country's independence. No other party gave this country's independence. It's like a child of this country, child of Pangu Party. Set up its military, set up the three arms of government for the better part. We have three distinct arms of government, and this Parliament, anyone, especially those who are qualified with the power of Section 18 of our Constitution. Our country was beautifully crafted by the fathers of this nation led by Pangu Party, and I don't intend to dilute that separation. Judiciary is separate, executive is separate, and the legislature is separate. The power for any one citizen of this country, your qualified right is locked into constitution if the executive government has done a wrong thing. Needless to protest, needless to fight, needless to burn cars. All you have to do is run to the court with this paper that we are transparently putting to the floor of Parliament. No government before me has been this transparent to our people. Don't take this sort of thing for granted. Papua New Guinea. These are matters of the executive government, could be locked in Mari Barracks and Manasupe House and not to the floor of Parliament. We are bringing it out to the floor of Parliament. This is not a treaty. This is an agreement. You change government, you can change it. But governments are entitled to make key interventions for our country. Mr. Assistant Speaker, as your Prime Minister and the last man to stand in defense of our country, I want to inform my citizens, and I spoke to our Unitec students, as your WAS Papa, I cannot give you assurance that tonight I go to sleep and an incursion takes place in our country and I'm able to defend your country. No. We have allowed our military to be eroded in the last 48 years, for goodness sake. Sovereignty is defined by the robustness and strength of our military. James Marape and this government is not reckless to forfeit our economic interest. This one does not forfeit the economic interest except add value to your economic interest. 4 years ago, I had a stand against Barrick. I said, no, enough is enough. You had 95%. Now I'm going to get majority. And my opposition, including those in the House, said Barrick will run away. 4 years on, has Barrick run away? No. They've accepted that now they will sit on 49 and this country will sit on 51. Leadership is about making the call and time will judge. I asked Papua New Guinea, come with me 15 years into time and judge whether this is correct or not. In the present circumstances we are faced in, it's just like a story. Someone said he went to heaven once and he asked God, how didn't you save me when I was praying to be saved? And the flood was coming up. Mr. Speaker, and God told him, I sent you a helicopter once, you never sat down, you never waved to the helicopter. I sent you a ship and you never waved to the ship. You expect me to come down on earth and save you or what? I gave you intelligence to fix yourself. Mr. Assistant Speaker, if anyone feels this is wrong, we can debate and speak here. But I ask you, go to the courts and measure against the compatibility of this agreement against our national constitution. Our national constitution will stand the test of time. And if it is wrong, United States of America will be mature because their democracy, they will mature to respect that our court has spoken. And our government, your government, under my words, will truly respect that the courts have spoken. But at this point in time, in the present circumstances, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we've done and processed this since 2016-17. The previous government started this, but did not have the balls or whatever it is to process this right through. Mr. Speaker, some of these type of decisions take maturity and strength to pursue it all the way through.
We have a point of order, Prime Minister. Deputy Opposition Leader.
To our good Prime Minister, this la unparliamentary word musimia. Rausim na put him na plagupla where go inside.
Deputy Opposition Leader, your point of order is in order, Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, funny aside, let me withdraw this statement. Thank you for the point of order. Mr. Speaker, and so I rise to present this ship rider agreement to the Parliament for Parliament's study as the House of our people and for Parliament on behalf of our people to understand what entails the signing of the ship riders agreement. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we signed this again at the margins of FIBIC on the 22nd of last month. Let me from the outside also place on record my recognition of all our public officials, Secretary of Foreign Affairs Department, the Secretary of the Defense Department,
our state solicitor and every other Papua New Guinean state officials who ensured they process this right through and to bring this shipwright agreement to the stage of signing and the signing that took place. I want to inform the House from the outset that this process was manned by competent Papua New Guineans, and the agreement was flipped and turned over and read right through by all Papua New Guineans, right throughout the entire strata of the government machinery in as far as processing this sort of agreement is concerned. I now report to this House, to the Parliament, which is part of the prescribed process of law to ensure that our people, through the elected representatives, are able to receive and ratify or read through the signed agreement and, more importantly, understand what it means for our country and our people. Mr. Speaker, let me begin by stating that USA has always been a strategic diplomatic partner. They have been part of us for the last 48 years in various capacities. In fact, our history with them goes back much longer, but for the better part of our life as an independent nation, they've been part of us in all levels of engagements. Yes, I note one or two concerns that sometimes they've been silent, and I've also, at the highest, at my level, spoke to the President of the United States, spoke to the Secretary of State of the United States, that you seem so far from this part of the world, and such our conversation has brought this elevation of our relationship with USA, and shipwright agreement is a benefactor of those level of conversations at leader to leader at the bilateral level. The United States represents some of our allies who we have common relationship with, whether it's in the church or historic relationship or common ideologies or common belief system and similarity in many of our worldviews. Collective concerns are based and founded on the similar sets of values. And so, honorable members, I want to indicate that we have signed this shipwright agreement within the spirit of the commonalities we have with USA in many fronts, and not just commercial front or other areas that we are raising concern with. We had to commence our collective conversations from a similar set of values. The signing of the shipwright agreement with the United States of America, the world's superpower, is unprecedented. It has never been done before in our country. It has now elevated our relationship in our 48 years of relationship with USA to the highest. Our country faces many challenges, including policing our land and maritime borders. We must deal with illegal and unreported fishing. We have transnational trading of illicit substance, including drug trafficking, that compromises our borders. We have to deal with illegal forestry activities and a myriad of other border-related issues. The shipwright agreement will help us to police our maritime borders, given that we do not have the capacity or the resources to do so. I note the opposition leader's request for us to put, and quoting him, billions into, or borrow billions into fixing our defense force. We are responsible. We are not here to borrow recklessly, but within the context of what we can. And if DCA, an agreement, can source us this money, well, why not? And so this is what we are embarking upon. Once a shipwright is ratified by Parliament, it will legitimize and give effect to the operationalization of the shipwrighter. It is designed to augment our national capabilities by riding off the back of the U.S. capabilities which are available within our region. Honorable members, those who have promulgated the ideas that we have not upheld our sovereign interess do not understand what we have achieved by signing this agreement. The details of the shipwright agreement outlined below should allay any fears that we have failed to negotiate properly. The agreement was negotiated by Papua New Guineans and for Papua New Guinea. Critics must know that the negotiations on shipwright agreement and the Defense Cooperation Agreement were not done overnight. It commenced in 2016. It has taken almost 7 years for the negotiations from both sides to reach an agreement on the final stage of the ship rider agreement. All stages of the negotiations are of full checks and balances built into the process to ensure they continue to come back and deal with the national interests as the key feature of this agreement. And should I say, it will be kind of me to make mention of our team of lawyers at the State Solicitor's Office. They worked very diligently and prudently. I want to make mention here for our Parliament to record on handset that United States of America admitted that our legal point picked from Papua New Guinea, and not specially for the shipwright agreement, but for another agreement called the 505 agreement. That was correct in legal position, and the United States of America has admitted to us. It also influenced the change of similar agreement with other partners globally, and this emanated from the depth of our own lawyers. They were so sharp, they picked it up, and it influenced the change of USA similar agreement they have with other nations also. So I just thought I want to give a little bit of kudos to our state lawyers. Many times they work overtime with less recognition, and I was very proud when the Secretary of Navy informed myself that your lawyers' advice was considered and correct, and it influenced USA changing similar 505 agreement they have with other armies nationwide. Members must note that from 2016, wider consultations were held in country between different agencies of government, particularly with the Department of Justice and Attorney General, Office of the State Solicitor, PNG Customs, CASA PNG, National Airport Corporation, Department of Defense, PNG Defense Force, Transport and Foreign Affairs Department. Members of this esteemed state negotiating team worked long hours, particularly at the tail end of the negotiation process, to ensure that the final agreements are represented or represents the consensus view before the text was cleared for signing. The final conclusion given by the State Solicitor this year was that the shipwright agreement does not require national constitutional amendments, including on existing legislation, so it gave the legal consent for Papua New Guinea to become a party to these agreements. In addition, the Office of the State Solicitor advised that our sovereignty was never compromised in any way. It is important for any leader of a government to understand the legal foundations of any agreement and to understand its alignment with the constitution of the country. Once these issues were clarified and settled, the agreement was ready to go. It therefore must give us full confidence that our collective interest has been fully preserved in this agreement signed. Mr. Speaker, the honourable members must appreciate the good and noble intention of the shipwright agreement. Subject to ratification by Parliament, the shipwright agreement will modernise our security relationship, particularly as it relates to the policing of our maritime borders with the partnership with the United States. The shipwright agreement with the United States will greatly improve the capacity of a naval element of the PNG Defence Force in terms of monitoring our maritime borders from illegal fishing and other illicit crimes. Additionally, it will facilitate bilateral and multilateral exercise and engagement in support of our regional capacity building priorities. It also enables the United States to be more responsive in emergency situations, such as those involving humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. The U.S. Coast Guard's Shipwright program will enhance PNG's organic enforcement capacities and capabilities, improving overall maritime domain awareness and helping PNG protect its sovereignty. The shipwright agreement will also provide an expedited mechanism for obtaining flag state consent to board and set vessels reasonably suspected of illicit trafficking, as well as promote robust cooperation and information sharing between the United States and Papua New Guinea. The signing of this agreement demonstrates a commitment to work together to promote good maritime governance in the region. Mr. Speaker, to conclude, there are many more opportunities for PNG to gain from our continued dialogue and participation at international forum. And what we have done in terms of signing the shipwright agreement with the United States will bring about practical gains such as building capacity of our defense force to international standard, as well as training and instilling discipline that we need to do so in our defense as we speak. In the end, we agreed for an agreement that preserved our sovereignty, that does not seek immunities, and does not require any legislative amendments to secure the agreement as it is. It is important for the government to satisfy themselves that the key considerations are preserved in the final text of the agreement. Let me, before I conclude on this, inform everyone and give full assurance to everyone. In our considered view, this shipyard agreement coming at the back of our defense cooperation agreement with USA adds value to our military, promotes our military, protects and grows our military to ensure they contribute to nation-building role in our country. As I speak today, this specific shipyard agreement gives ability for our defense force, naval our defense force, to board U.S. Defense Force and to pilot and captain those ships, be trained, and as long as any U.S. ship comes into our water and operate, PNG Marine element will be present, or the Air Force, as they come in, stay here. Our pilots will be trained to also be part of the program. Any other subsequent work agreements will be there, will be agreed upon. Every step of the way, our defense force will consulted and agreed, and they will come at the back. These are just operational framework agreement we are putting in place that will now shepherd in U.S. into our country for our work. They will not trample on our constitution. They will not trample on our rights. They have not been given any immunity to break laws in our country. Both United States and Papua New Guinea are democratic countries. They will be transparent about this. They will have it up in the public domain. We likewise is doing this for public consumption on what we are doing. And I want to again conclude by informing members of Parliament that this is done for the best interest to protect our sovereign borders. What good is a country without protecting our sovereign borders? Our sovereign borders need to be protected. I know, and I spoke to our Pacific Island leaders. They are aware that, and it was signed in their presence, they are aware that we are moving into this space with our Pacific Island brothers and sisters. They are also equally aware that the challenges in PNG is much, much greater than their own countries. We have over 10 million people. Most of the Pacific Island nations haven't gone past 1 million yet. In fact, Fiji is the closest, with approaching 1 million today. Most nations are under 100,000. They don't share land border. We share land border. We have customary obligations on both sides. We share sea borders closest to Australia. Our requirement as a sovereign nation in Pacific is much different from the requirements of deep Pacific. We are not same as every other Pacific. We are closest to Asia by land and by border. We are closest to Australia by sea and almost by island borders. Our defense need is different from their defense need. Mr. Acting Speaker, considering Papua New Guinea's placement today and our challenges today and our budget deficits we have today and the need to strengthen our military today, we have not also compromised our relation with China and elsewhere. Later this year, I'm going for a state visit to China. I'm just following a path of Singapore the day Singapore walked 50 years ago. Singapore partnered USA for military. Today they have enhanced defense cooperation with USA for military. Not defense cooperation, enhanced. They maintain relations with China for commerce and trade, and our friends in China knows us. China and Beijing also knows that this government gave Beijing priority over Taipei. And I put this down on handset. So the Chinese and the Chinese government knows exactly where the heart of this government is, and that is to promote national interest, not geopolitical interest or their interest. We relate and trade with them, and we've never compromised our trade with them. I want to give assurance to the members of this House. If this October I don't go to China, then you may question me. But for our national security, we open up market to India like never before in a big way. We are not sought with global friends, but we have to decide our own security and the security arrangements purely authentic from within us. This is not an American push-down agreement. This is a PNG-born agreement in an interest to protect our national interests. If you have any other way to assist me build my defense, I'm willing to take advice from you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister for Trade and Investment.
Thank you, Speaker. As Minister for Trade, International Trade, I want to firstly start my debate with making some comments on trade and investment and the impact of this agreement on our relationship with other countries. Mr. Acting Speaker, I want to calm down all the fears in Parliament about trade and investment and how this signing of this agreement will impact on that. You only have to look at Australia and New Zealand, two of the biggest trading partners of China right now. They both have free trade agreements with China, and China is their biggest trading partner when China knows they are the strongest allies to the US. I think there is no need for that fear. There is no need for that fear because China's biggest trading partners is Australia and New Zealand today, who are two of America's greatest and strongest military partners. So I think there's no need for panic, and there's no need to say that our commercial interest is being compromised. There's just no grounds for that. Now I'll come back to the benefits of this agreement. Previous week I was in London. Interestingly, Mr. Acting Speaker, I met a Fijian officer, and I also spoke to the Deputy Prime Minister of Fiji. And this is what they told me that really amazed me. Under an MOA between the Fiji government and the British government, Fijians have 1,000 men stationed in the United Kingdom Defence Force at any one point in time, who are trained, equipped, and are on the payroll of the UK government. This was amazing. They even go to war with the UK and join the UN peacekeeping forces because they're very, very highly trained and equipped. And interestingly, they told me, defense is a big industry for Fiji in terms of revenue generation. The soldiers in the UK send back $1 billion every year back to their family in Fiji. It's a big industry. And amazingly, Fiji has a defense force of the size of 13,000 soldiers at any one point in time. PNG only has 3,000. We have bigger security issues than Fiji in terms of land border. And they have a bigger defense force. So we have a need to build our numbers and the capacity of our defense force. Every year, hundreds and thousands of Fijians are flown over by the British government in terms of soldiers and are trained in the UK every single year under the agreement. Mr. Acting Speaker, when I looked at the Defense Force cooperation agreement with the US, it only says in Article 1, let me remind Parliament, it's only a framework agreement. There is no details in terms of the cooperation. And we are making so much fuss when we're only talking about a framework agreement. We haven't even talked about whether in the details of an agreement that must follow after the framework agreement, whether we're going to access the satellite that Honorable Lama is talking about, whether they're going to have forces on land. The details haven't come yet. What are we fearing? It's amazing. This is only a framework agreement. We haven't started. The Fijians have got 1,000 soldiers, as I said. Hundreds and thousands of Fijian soldiers going there. They joined the UK forces to undertake UN peacekeeping missions. We haven't yet negotiated the details of this agreement. For me, that's the time when we should really talk. But Fiji should give us some basis on what we're talking about, the benefits they've got because of such an agreement. One of the things that really frustrated me recently was when I went with the Australian High Commissioner to my district. We were taken in there by an Australian Defence Force chopper because our army doesn't have choppers. They left us and just took off. Do you realize our defense force has no choppers right now? For the last 48 years, we haven't been given the support and the capacity to build up our defense force, even to deal with our internal issues, Mr. Assistant Speaker. So I want to say this, Mr. Assistant Speaker, to this House. There is no need to talk about and create unnecessary fear about trade and investment, because the biggest trading partners of China are two of America's strongest allies, New Zealand and Australia. I want to say this. The benefits of going into such an agreement, we only have a framework agreement. If we go into such an agreement, our soldiers, we could have battalions of young people who are now looking for jobs everywhere. We could be recruiting them and training them to work in the US and sending millions back to this country. We could have UN peacekeeping forces who are trained up in another country to undertake such missions. It could become a very big industry and an answer to solve many of our youth unemployment problems. So I want to tell Parliament, as your trade minister, there is no issues with trade and investment as far as I'm concerned. I've already spoken to the US trade team when I met them at the APEC meeting in Detroit. We must go beyond the defense cooperation agreement to talk about our economic cooperation agreement with the US. They're getting a lot of gas out of our country. What do we get in return? This is the sort of discussions we need to have at the same time as we are negotiating the details of this future defense force cooperation, which will be enhanced after the signing of this agreement. So all in all, I think we have started on the right path. I want to commend the Prime Minister and the team behind and the Defense Minister. You've started a very good job. Let's work together to put in the details and see how we can benefit from such an agreement, like how countries like Fiji have benefited from such an agreement with the UK. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Governor Faoro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Governor Faoro, sorry,
yes.
We have a point of order here.
Thank you, Assistant Speaker.
Member for Yali Bupangia, your point of order is in order. My eyes are going around in a semicircle in the interest of the House. Your point of order is in order. Governor Faoro.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker. I wish to support the presentations by the Prime Minister on the Defence Cooperation Agreement and the Shipwright Agreement, and just add my thoughts to those of my colleagues who are presented here. They have made some very good, poignant statements, and I just want to add to that. But before I do that, I wanted to just read an article that appeared on the national newspaper on the 25th of May, titled "PNG Free to Pick Friends," that referred to a statement made by the Chinese ambassador to Papua New Guinea, His Excellency Zheng Fanhua. And in his statements, His Excellency stated that China basically had no problem with this agreement. And he made a quote here. He stated that with climate change being the biggest challenge that PNG and other Pacific nations were facing, China wished that all international development partners could join hands to support PNG. So I just wanted to make that comment and clarify that, whilst we are concerned about geopolitical issues, these are the comments made by the representatives of those countries in our country. I don't think there is an issue with the Defence Cooperation Program or the Defence Cooperation Program or the Shipwright Agreement. In fact, I think Papua New Guinea stands to benefit significantly. But it's what we do, and taking cue from what the member for Vanimo Green stated, we have to be ready. We have to look at the details so that we put in there what it is that we want. And so we know how we're going to benefit from these agreements, these engagements that we are making with our international partners, not just the USA, but whoever we sign agreements with. Now to add a few points that will be able to bring some clarity to the comments that I'm making here. 1975, we used to have military patrols along the 820-kilometer land border. These military patrols were constant and continuous, managing the porous border, maintaining vigilance, and ensuring that our sovereignty was obvious, was explicit, was certain. Today, those patrols are not taking place. The chairman of the Parliamentary Committee on Defence Force and International Agreements, Honourable Belden Nama, is absolutely correct. Our defence force has deteriorated. And why? The fault is in here, us. We, the political leaders, have allowed our defence force to deteriorate. We've actually allowed our police force to deteriorate as well, over time. They've put in white papers and many submissions and given assessments galore about how to improve, how to modernize, how to step up. We haven't taken notice. We may have talked about it, debated it, but we haven't done anything beyond that. We have some of the finest men and women in our army and our police. When they travel abroad on international exercises, they do very well. Some of them beat their international competitors from developed nations. They do much better than them. We have quality, but we need to take stock of their state of affairs and improve. And that's why these agreements are very important. And they're great opportunities, but we have to negotiate what it is that we want. We have to be prepared and ensure that we get the benefits that we ought to be getting so that we can develop the capacity we need. I'm excited about this agreement because we will be addressing, besides capacity building and having the opportunity to modernize not just our defense, but also our police and all our other national security entities, but we'll also be able to curb growing transnational crimes. We don't have the capacity to attend to transnational crimes in this country. We don't. Right now, as you and I are sitting here speaking, there are mother boats just anchored off the EEZ of Papua New Guinea, waiting for the illegal fishing entities to come in here, illegally fish, and take hundreds and millions of kina worth of our resources out of this country. It's happening. Not to mention the crisscrossing of drug cartels in this country, those who engage in human trafficking, those who engage in human smuggling, firearms trafficking, and other such transnational criminal activities, which we don't seem to be concerned about, but we're very concerned about this agreement. We don't have the capacity to attend to these issues that are threatening our economy, that are threatening our future. And this doesn't stop us from engaging with China or India or any other country. In fact, many of us go and train in this country. I benefited from such training. I trained in the US, in Australia, and in China, in military colleges, law enforcement agencies, and so forth. All of us go and train in these places. Our officers, our policemen and women, our defense force soldiers, and they all benefit from this training. It doesn't stop us from engaging with other nations. I'm also very delighted to hear about the fact that we will be able to be in a better position to respond to disasters, natural disasters. We are on the Pacific Rim of Fire. We are constantly at threat of natural disaster. How do we respond when such a disaster happens? And with this capacity, we will be able to respond quicker, rapidly, and therefore be able to save many of our people's lives. There are other benefits, economic opportunities, for instance. Enhanced diplomatic relations, for instance. The agreement would represent a significant deepening of diplomatic ties between our nations. And it could have more benefits beyond just defense. Now, having said all that, I just want to make a point here about awareness. And this is where we as a government have to really pay attention to the fact that we now live in the age of information and misinformation and disinformation. So we have to be making a significant effort to get out there and inform our people what is happening. Actually, most of our people are not against this type of agreements, but they just did not know what it's all about. And with all the misinformation and disinformation that's out there, they were confused. And many of them were anxious, and many of them were asking what's going on. They didn't know what to believe, who to believe. And so we have to make an effort to inform our people what's going on. And I would say that in such instances, we engage parliamentary committees, and they can engage with civil society. They can engage with state agencies and go out there and inform our people what's going on. Do active awareness. So once the people are informed, you'll find that they'll actually be supportive of what we are trying to do. Thank you, Mr. Assistant Speaker. Those are my presentations.
Honourable Member for Yalibu Pangia.
Mr. Speaker, thank you for recognizing my protest and asking me to say a few words on these agreements that has been signed by our Prime Minister and our government. Thank you for tabling this report, this agreement, because it gives us an opportunity to say a few words. And let me say this, of course, this work was started by our government in 2016. The agreement that we were looking for was a little bit different from what you have signed. But let me say that there's nothing wrong with our country entering into an agreement such as this with the United States or any other country for that matter. The issues that we have is that about consistency of our policies that we have had since independence in 1975. But it is good to see United States re-engaging in the Pacific. Good to see United States re-engaging in the Pacific after absence of almost 80 years. They were here in 1942, not necessarily to defend Papua New Guinea, but to advance their own interest and that of their ally Australia. And we got caught up in the Second World War during that time. Since then, largely they have been absent, and many governments in the past have been trying their very best to re-engage with the United States for quite a long time. So to see them back in the region is good, but also it's not only for Papua New Guinea's interest or the Pacific or the region's interest. America is also doing it for the protection of their own national interest, which we all understand. We all understand the geopolitics that's happening within our region. And Mr. Speaker, to see that we are entering into an arrangement similar to that they have with South Korea, Japan and Philippines, allowing military bases here for United States to operate within the areas that they have listed in this agreement. But we are not at the front line of conflicts that these countries are. South Korea is still at war with North Korea since the Korean War. There's never been a surrender, or there's never been an end of war declaration. That is why the presence of the United States in South Korea is understandable. Japan, after the Second World War, United States has been present. It's understandable about the threats of countries up north to that country. So their requirement for United States Army to be present in their countries is understandable. Similar to that of Philippines, when you look at the South China Sea conflicts that is happening there, where Philippines feels that there is breaches of territorial rights. But PNG is not in conflict with anyone. We are not at conflict with any of our neighbors or the region for that matter. So it is concerning that we are allowing military bases to have free access into our country, creating attention, unnecessary attention, been coming to PNG as a result of that. And for the first time since the Rarotonga arrangements, we are allowing nuclear facilities to enter into PNG. The ships will carry nuclear facilities. The ships will carry nuclear facilities. The aeroplanes will do so. You can't stop it. That's a fact. And Australia is, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not disagreeing with it, so don't get too excited. All I'm telling you is what is going to happen, the reality that we are going to face as a result of this agreement. So it is going to bring a lot of attention to our country, so we have to be prepared for it. You know, the Pacific Island countries who were here, I know that they were polite in not making any statements, but they would be disappointed. Because we are by far the biggest country, the biggest economy, biggest population, biggest land mass, biggest everything. But, you know, we also have an obligation to our smaller brothers. And to see the nuclear free Pacific is now been, policy has been now been changed, it will be a concern to many of our friends in the Pacific. Similarly, the government is supporting Japan dumping some of this nuclear waste into the sea. Again, we as a country, bigger brother in the region, we have an obligation to these countries. So I want us to just take note of things that we are entering into agreements with the government.
Belibu Pangia, we have a point of order. Prime Minister, what's your point of order?
Acting Speaker, my point of order is to correct the member for Yalubu's incorrect statement. We're not supporting Japan to dump nuclear waste into the waters. That must be clear. He made a specific mention. We're supporting Japan to dump nuclear waste into the waters. We supported Japan to prove that the disposal or discharge into the waters are above the highest standard possible they could arrive at. If that is so, until they prove that, they can discharge. So we're not just supporting them to discharge any waste into the waters, and I don't think they'll be stupid too to discharge any waste into the water unless they run through the test for them. So I just want to correct him. Any statement we make, people are listening in, watching in. We just have to make statement consistent with what is really out there instead of making inferences here. Thank you.
Honourable Prime Minister, your point of order is in correction to the members. I will ask the member to continue on. Take note from your...
Thank you, Acting Speaker. Thank you. I mean, I must be reading the wrong media releases that are coming out from the Prime Minister's office and others in government, but if that is so, well, that is the point that needs to be stressed. We need to be consistent with what we say and what we do. That's all I'm saying about this particular issue. The issue about this agreement, Mr. Speaker, I've just had an opportunity to read through some of the paragraphs of this, and Article 3 concerns me. Article 3 of the Defense Agreement concerns me. I know we've got some brilliant lawyers and they must have cleared it, but I hope that this is not going to breach our constitutional provisions and the laws that we have. And Article 3, Paragraph 3, where it says that Papua New Guinea is conceding jurisdiction over to the visiting forces, conceding. And further it goes down to say that U.S. authorities will have exclusive right to exercise criminal jurisdiction over U.S. personnel. Now, bearing in mind the challenge by the governor for Morobe before about the Australian agreements that we signed, this is the very similar sort of wording that it challenged the Supreme Court and the government lost. But now, when we are adopting this in this parliament, we are conceding our jurisdiction over to U.S. government. So we just need to be careful about what we are saying. Additionally, it says that the United States government has exclusive right to exercise civil and administrative jurisdiction over U.S. personnel for all their acts or omissions in the course of the official duty. And any acts or omissions that are done outside the official duties will come under PNG jurisdiction, but it further goes down on the same paragraph, says that Papua New Guinea authorities will immediately notify the U.S. authorities and shall promptly transfer this personnel over to the U.S. authorities. So that's paragraph 3. And it further goes down and says, shall immediately notify U.S. authorities of the arrest or detain, and that their properties and the effects and their private residence shall be inviolable. Well, I had to look up the dictionary to find out what that meaning was. Well, it says it can never be broken. That's what it says. So, this is not quite in line with what is the provisions of our law and our constitution. And that was tested by the Wenge challenge. So I think Parliament and government needs to take heed of this. And of course, it further states on paragraph 4 that U.S. forces shall have the authority to impose disciplinary measures in the territory of Papua New Guinea in accordance with U.S. laws and regulations. So if that doesn't concern you, well, I stand to differ. And then we talk about sort of the access to the areas that they are going to operate. And the areas that they are going to operate is listed at the back. At the back, which talks about the list of people, which is including Manus, Port Moresby Port, Port Moresby Airport, Ley City Port, Lombrum, Momote, Jacksons, and Najab. These are areas where they will have unlimited access. This is what we have agreed to. And they will not pay one single toya to PNG. Article 5, subsection, paragraph 2. Papua New Guinea too shall furnish these areas without rental or similar costs to the United States. So what are we getting out of all this? And the second issue is on paragraph 4, Article 5, paragraph 4. U.S. forces are authorized to control entry to these agreed facilities and areas. They will control the access to this. So our citizens and our people are going to have access to it. So this has to be clarity in what we are saying. And further on Article 6, Mr. Speaker, Acting Speaker, U.S. forces can position the equipment, position the supplies and materials at any of these places. And U.S. should have on paragraph 1, Article 6.1, it said U.S. forces shall have exclusive control and over the access to those. And paragraph 2 further goes down, Article 6.2, said they will go under unimpeded access. And anything that after this agreement ends, they have got the right, exclusive right to even remove. So further goes down to number 2. So these are very strong worded words in this agreement, Mr. Speaker, and they've got very specific meaning. And talking about ownership of infrastructure that's going to come, nothing that is fixed onto the ground they can take off anytime. Anything that is movable. So all these equipments and all these things that they are going to build, if it can be moved, they will take it with them. All I'm trying to highlight here is that how does it help build our defense force? How does it help build our Navy? How does it help build the Air Force? And Mr. Speaker, it further goes down. If you go to Article 9, you're talking about entry into Papua New Guinea. Of all these people who are coming to Papua New Guinea, Article 9, paragraph 2 says U.S. personnel and U.S. contractors shall be exempted from all other migration requirements in the territory of Papua New Guinea, including payments of fees, taxes, duties, either entering or exiting the country. we further goes down, Mr. Speaker, to Article 12. And when you read paragraph 4, it further says that U.S. personnel shall be exempted from paying taxes on income, profits, salary, and emoluments. We will even get no revenue from their salaries and wages tax. Not only the U.S. personnel, but all their contractors. It goes down paragraph 5. Any contractor that they engage will be also exempted. Now, I don't see, I've been trying to read it around quite in detail, but quite a big agreement, but I can't see any agreement about training of our personnel. I can't see how Minister for Trade was talking about us engaging some of our own Defense Force people to be employed by United States Army. I can't see them investing in a specific infrastructure in the country. So why are we doing this agreement for? We are assuming that there will be some big benefits coming, but it's not specifically mentioned in here. In fact, even the shipwriters agreement, we are given almost exclusive right to them managing our seas. So we need to be careful. This is a sort of agreement that PNG needs to expose itself to. So I know that our lawyers have had a good look at this, and it probably is in compliance with our constitution, but I think there need to be further clarity. And if the Minister for Trade is saying that this is just a framework agreement and there will be details coming on, I wish it is true. But the details here are quite specific, as you can read it, if you go line by line. There is got to be some provisions in here that will specifically said we will train 10,000 men. U.S. Army is very capable of doing this. They give millions and hundreds of millions and billions of kina to foreign countries and foreign defense force. What have we got out of this? There's got to be some value to the agreement we signed. Of course, we know we need to rebuild our defense force and our Navy and our Air Force. But it is not specifically mentioned in the agreement. We have to be specific about it, otherwise they will just take it generally and it's up to them. And I can tell you that we are not their priority. Their priority is the national interest of the United States. As in the case with any agreement we sign with Australia or anyone else. When we sign agreements with Australia, we are specific on what they have to build infrastructure in the country. And they've delivered some yet to be delivered. But I imagine all members of parliament that, we support the government for the agreement that's been signed with the United States. It's the biggest army in the world, so we need some arrangements in that respect. But we must get some value for our country, and that's all I'm asking. I congratulate my good neighbor and the Minister for Defense Force for signing this agreement. It's a job, work that has been in work for close to 6 or 7 years, but it's been delivered to our country. So let's take it on, but let us be careful of what we are signing up to. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Governor from Morobe.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker, for giving me the leave to debate on this very important agreement which was entered between Papua New Guinea government and on our behalf the Prime Minister and the Defence Minister who signed the agreement, and the United States government, which was signed by the relevant Secretary to the Department of United States. At the outset, I want to thank the Prime Minister, Honourable James Marape, to negotiate on SAC's agreement to be negotiated and signed. Honourable Acting Speaker, I am very sure that the Prime Minister had a good intent. No ulterior intent, but a good intent for the interests of this country in relation to the military. or to make sure that the defense force that we have in our country is formidable to ourselves and formidable to the highest of the international community, our friends or enemy. So I thank the Prime Minister. I have the benefit of perusing the agreement which is before us now, very briefly, but surely during the course of time I will peruse them and understand it fully. But the intent is very clear, Mr. Acting Speaker. We have friends close to us, Australian, the New Zealanders, and the country that we share land border, Indonesia, and the biggest Muslim country in the region. We have friends here, very close, and of course our Pacific neighbors, separated by seas. We got friends there. But they are friends. When you have friends close to you, they know you very well. They know your goodness and they know your badness. They know your strength and they know your weakness. And friends close to you are in competition. In competition in many ways. They want to compete to make sure they are much stronger than your friends close to them. They want to compete. They will not give you any much chance to make sure that you become powerful than them, Mr. Acting Speaker. For instance, Australia, country Australia, everybody says that they are our mates. And surely we are mates. Papua New Guineans are genuine in calling them and addressing them, feeling them as genuine mates. But I don't think they consider us as genuine mates. Mr. Acting Speaker, they advised this country. The commander was the Commander Peter Lau at the time, and the Prime Minister I forgot. They advised this country to disband all the terrorists in the defense reserves. Destroy the terrorists. The same country advised this country to come up with the investigation through police to make sure that the police force, they don't carry arms. Limit the supply of arms into our police constabulary. Now, this is a rascal country. This is a tribal war country. You're not going to go up there and shout and fight with your hands. Your enemies is not just coming with this just empty hand. It's coming with gun and anything. And for us, for the Australian country to come and advise us to say that we don't need to equip the police with gun. I said, man, Lolo man tok here. Mr. Acting Speaker, and they did that in our army. And I was the only one, Mr. Acting Speaker, on record, human being record and God's record. I was the only one that I told Peter Ilau, commander at that time, and the Australian government, hey, you know what bundara is tablo you. You know what bundara is tablo house you. You want to know man ogada. You must got bundara is tab. Biro I come. But you go skill bundara ya. You got bundara you don't man you go na enemy pret na go. No, to come and tell this country, he's not a colony. This is an independent state of Papua New Guinea. God is independent from the guys who are discouraging us to have the weapons. On the 15th of September, 16th of September, 1975. We are an independent nation. We are not a colony. We have every right to equip ourselves. But Australian established trade. We won the war, Mr. Acting Speaker. We won the military war in Vanuatu. We won it. We won it. We stopped Jimmy Stephen and his troops there. We killed them and made sure that Vanuatu became independent. We won the war. And we lost the war in Bougainville, Mr. Speaker. We lost the guerrilla war. We lost the war. If anybody says that we won the guerrilla war, it's kidding, Mr. Speaker. Because we continue to listen to our people who try to discourage us to get the weapons and build the weapons. Mr. Acting Speaker. So closest friend, you can say closest friend, but closest friend is you here. All the time they'll come killing you.
That is why, Mr. Prime Minister, what you did is, he's full of wisdom. Full of wisdom. Example, the Bible even says, all Judah man, Israel man, all talk, and begin with Joseph, Lord Jesus. And begin with Joseph, I'm not a man, I'm not come to heaven too. So 3 men that came from the east, only talk, and begin with God. And begin with God. Bible to talk, go to Bible and read him. You miss a prayer every day, Mr. Acting Speaker. That is why the people coming the far away, yeah, we can argue and say they're coming for their interests, but there are wise people coming. There are wise people coming to support this. I don't think that the Americans are looking weakness for Australia, weakness for Indonesia, weakness for New Zealand, will come and fully equip this for Pacific, come equip Papua New Guinea. Don't think that America is not looking. America is an intelligent country. America is power, any leader belong, any superpower belong. Democracy power belong in America. You know that. Australia's got a bad record for human rights violation. United Nations and put him Australia off. All I go support the United Nations, so I can't see Papua New Guinea go support. Because Papua New Guinea got good for record. Now America, Mr. Acting Speaker, and got good for record long democracy, or Papa democracy. Now you mean Papa democracy, no, yeah. That is why Papa democracy and the legally Papa democracy, they come to support. And they are wise people, Mr. Acting Speaker. Hey, country is formidable. Our country is powerful when the defense is formidable. Country is powerful when the diplomacy post is formidable. You don't have the formidable police. You don't have the formidable CIS. We don't have the formidable defense. It's a weak country. It's a weak country. That is why America come to support. We must support. We must sign agreement. Mr. Prime Minister, I will come to the constitutional issue later. But in the meantime, this is a good agreement. When the United States people were here with the cooperation with the Pacific Islands, that in the event that there is a war, the Americans will come to support us. And they came to Lae. They based in Lae when I was the governor. And the captain who was responsible is Captain Jesse Jackson. He was in charge. And at the end of the mission, there was a gathering to farewell them, Mr. Acting Speaker. And Mr. Acting Speaker, I gave a speech to the United States Commander, Captain Jesse Jackson. Captain, can you see Papua New Guineans? You see their faces? They're born warriors, I said. They're born warriors. Men and women, they're born warriors, Mr. Acting Speaker. But the Americans, they are not born warriors. They are trained warriors. That's the difference, I said. You got the born warriors in hand right here. You train them, they're born warriors with additional training, equipment, appropriate artillery. You put them in the front line, they deliver the mission to you. They deliver the mission, Mr. Acting Speaker. And the Jesse Jackson, he said, I saw them, they are warriors, he said. I saw every Papua New Guinean Lae faces, simple faces in Lae, or Morobe faces in Lae, or Kerma faces in Lae. He said, I saw them, they are warriors. And so, this is coming from the top army commander. And I said, Mr. Acting, Mr. Captain Jesse, can you come and put the American base in Nacha? Because I got too many born warriors, they have to be trained. Train them and send them to the front. And they will deliver the machine to you without fear and favor, but make sure insurance and all must stop. Mr. Acting Speaker, and the commander assured me, he said, Governor, I am speaking, I saw the record book will go there. Governor, my Lord Governor, he said, the chief big carving, I want to give it to him. 8 men will carry that carving. And the 8 people have to carry that carving. And the captain said, Mr. Governor,
in his speech, he said, our relationship from here on, the weight of that relationship is heavier than the carving. Heavier than carving. That is why they come in.
Honourable
Mr. Acting
members,
Speaker, that is why.
Honourable Governor, I'd like to inform the House, the Honourable Governor is making his debate speech. If you feel like laughing, please you leave the room and laugh outside. Don't laugh loud that you disturb the House. Thank you.
Mr. Acting Speaker, so we need to build a defense from our friends from far away, like America. Like the Honourable Minister for Commerce and Industry has said, the Fijians are benefiting from their relationship and ties in relation to military with the United Kingdom. Why not? What stops us? Nothing stops us. The Constitution, international law, nothing stops us. Let's be friends with our friends from far away. Because close to ya, all jealous man. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, Prime Minister, you're right that we make friends with the United States. We have to build the numbers of defense force. We have to build artillery, military artillery, the aircrafts, the ships. We have to build them. If we can't do them, we get the friends from overseas to come and help us, our good friends. Oh yeah, we're saying that Americans have other interests, and Americans have not put down in the, or they've not reduced it to writing in the agreement here, that what they're going to do to help us, like the former Prime Minister was saying. But with the greatest respect to him, and stepping stone agreement, Mr. Acting Speaker. It's a stepping stone agreement. Now you must have one house now. You will talk to good. You must have one house. Oh, interest for America, China like come more, so you come up, brother. You stop there. Doesn't mean that you may be one in China, because our policy is friend to all and enemy to none. Right? But if you pray to China, hey, you go to America, I travel America far and wide, I live me travel. Everything in America is made in China. Close spectrum. Whenever we think America, made in China. Everywhere is made in China. Huh? You go to Australia, travel Australia, everything is made in China. In Papua New Guinea, everything is made in China. How are you thinking by losing me? That's so true. And by needing China, because everything is made in China. Everything. So even when pray, nothing, even when pray. But our defense is a serious matter, Mr. Acting Speaker. We have to build a formidable defense in this country. So who says no? Who says no? What law that stops us? We are right by the Constitution. We're a sovereign state, independent state. What stops us, Mr. Acting Speaker? Nothing. Prime Minister, you are given full support. Now, Mr. Acting Speaker. Mr. Acting Speaker, we need a formidable defense force. Our defense force is just like a finance department. Our defense force is just like a rural department. Or department of provincial affairs. Army department, disciplinary department. Rural department there, finance department there, civic line is up here. Commander say, plenty boy in a chumuk around here. And when kind of army? With a disclaimer army and boy army, policeman to me talks chumuk army, police. We need to build an army formidable, abide by the ethics of the defense and the disciplinary rules. All kind of European army, you but put it not in a peace army. That kind of army we need it now. And the Americans will do. Americans will help us to build our formidable army. And Prime Minister, I'm on your side. As to the agreement, finish my debate. As to the agreement, everything's okay. Everything is okay, except point now, Leader Blong, opposition in Tok. I will only raise the constitutional issue. I will not raise any other issues. No, former Prime Minister raised him long taxes and all of those are not constitutional issues. But the only constitutional issue
is the one in relation to in relation to Article 3. Those are the only constitutional issues. Now, me will think, why Prime Minister, you come up with them good plus something kin talking America yes no burkim loken. Make him no close to me like cry so me will him cry will Mr. You good plus something you can finish here. And then you try to bring in an agreement just similar to the NN's Corporation. Very good thing. They brought in $2 billion. They were trying to bring $2 billion to make sure that we fight the law and disorder in this country. That was a very good intention, very good project. But they brought in this unconstitutional something come inside, law giving immunity. And that is why the Supreme Court ruled that it was unconstitutional. They take away the powers of the police. The Royal Papua New Guinea Constabulary is the only authority in this country to charge and to bring people to court on criminal matters. Nobody else. You cannot take it outside. You have to deal in the jurisdiction. They're the only powers. And the power of immunity, it doesn't rest with anybody, Mr. Acting Speaker. It rests. As to the criminal matters, it rests with the public prosecutor. And the Supreme Court in that case ruled unconstitutional because they were setting up a steering committee. NN's Corporation was setting up a steering committee to deal with people coming in NN's Corporation when they infringed the law. They were not going to be dealt with by the Papua New Guinea courts. They will be supposed to be taken up to the steering committee. That's why 5-man bench rule unconstitutional. And therefore, in this case, when you say that you give exclusive power to the American Army to deal with the criminal matter, it infringes that section. That is why I am not saying, take it from me, I am not saying that the agreement is no good, the intent is no good. I am with you 1,000%, 1,000, not 100. No good, you know, 1,000. I'm with you. But why do you have to bring this thing in? And all I can propose, Mr. Acting Speaker, final one, let's propose a constitutional amendment. Constitutional amendment. Long give him exception, long this kind of agreement. Army. Because we need to build a formidable army. Therefore, Mr. Acting Speaker, I said, let's get the constitutional army so that complete exclusive immunity that's supposed to be given by the public prosecutor, we take it away and give it exception. Exception to agreements like that, because this agreement is very, very important for this country. And I want to, Prime Minister, want you, me no challenge you, taso me lawyer man, me no carpenter, me no pastor, me lawyer man. Kind of say member belong green me talk army, me no challenge me, because I'm army man, full blown army. Now me am a full blown lawyer. That is why, Mr. Acting Speaker, Prime Minister me like him, let's introduce amendment to give exception to cases like this now. We must change the Constitution. Don't let it there and try to fight against it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Governor for Manus.
Mr. Abdullah, supporting Prime Minister for these Platubla agreements. Plan the time you make some agreements where you know got direct access to true law. In this case, United States. You go through Australia, or looking one way to flop long or kisim, like or later on my camera you. And now I'm me. You got display agreements where you direct Prime Minister na Foreign Affairs Province Blami been come up one time Sambra initiative. We will call him Benjamin Initiative. We will put him go finish law Foreign Affairs display. We hope that online blame me look display time will include him. Position law you mean and negotiations blame me one time United States. Because display pass law one kind agreements where United States to have him long all military bases around the world too. No good you come one them agreement where no good you no benefit to mass. But it is also missing up now. I mean, it's only a framework, so we not go inside law, story law, detail on it. But me like that same experience, plus me also my province where all kind of work also me have come up. In a long time, we've been got finished. Government of Papua New Guinea is signing agreement on the Australia law asylum seekers by base Lomanos. Na tokol sa meme bla signing framework ta sol ya bian ba bla looking good plakai kay blong em kambian. 1 or 2 agreements were made, and all agreements are manusino stuff inside. Minotokol haplo ada haplo PNG no can got, but place where woki come up long em, you may not can lose thinking. Inside law agreement here, 1 block long all was 500,000 kina, 500 million kina, but how city stablo lay. Now another black pen, you know got wrong, me support him. But below when I'm on put you 1 really money, how city manus too. Those are the type of agreements that you know of talk long. So time me talk to a framework na skeleton, me like him in future, no good you not can work in skeleton can pass. But meet now get I can pass one time before you sign it. Because time will be or leaders only signing finish. I'm agreement. Now framework here, but you meet time no pitching one kind of click I will agree finish inside you know got space but talk to a big like I I'm display I'm sure me blow display kind of agreement. Let me pass law display. The long time only walk. The walk plus LM seeker. 1 block overseas man is an after all supervised, is staff close to now line blow me PNG, only kill him die on long through. By the 10 block fortnight, blow me minimum wage, now it's over 20,000 kina. You may story law all this plug and something. So time you blow lawyers play me, now line you go pass, you blow working all agreements play me. You play it looks below display too. Plenty time. Say depends. Online we go pass lo depends play me. Or look lo point of view belong also online lo depends. Interest belong lo talk lo depends. Or in a first time you talk too. You make sure you talk to lo interest lo country too, not only depends too. Because for example, Manus you know one island where stop nothing, where you know got money stop long. You know got leaders long. So thinking you walk him, you expect him also you're right as well. Now you guys him be long leaders too, no? Province play me. All get that. Law you all right him, you will operate him. You got jurisdiction play me. Logirana lo solo waratu. Now people stop lo look out play me. All this plaka and work law depends where come up. You expect him environmental issues too by come up. Because all CPO, you may have all good plus CPO no now you allow more to come inside. All not talking in CPO, you're right in all right. This plaka you may expect him by come up. Say for example now base Istablo Manus, Istablo Lombron. Now that you me, he come up also. Past time you not target, me not talking about enemy, but you miss all some things as senis. You may not by come up target, Manus by come up target. Nungut you blow get a Papua New Guinea by stop hamamas, me blow by pest blood die. You play ready too. Province blow me to no. Suppose bomb me come upside, you will pick simply go road by me run away go upside to no. I mean those are examples of all something where you talk to. Suppose me by die, past them lay me. Polo one me no can kai past them some good like I na time me die. At least me kai finish. O by me die na you will pay kai all good like I na me die na you will stop kai taso. All this plaka and thinking me like him look. Mr. Parliament quite a while now. Mr. at one time Lombrum, all work him reducing Lombrum become a liquid base. You know more strong blood people base. lo passing lo Navy blaming. I think that's the reason why Manu land bill it come up, because I like moving more plant here come back law Port Moresby. And let's not deny it, but because of geopolitics, all this play is sense. Opportunity for Australia come, only subim asylum seeker go. And now can you may look him talk military come inside. The time you will negotiate, you may say, depends post play me, you need him more than equipment. You may need him all get something all American in a game like me. You may all get one bill. But you may must say, to all have no interest from understand. Let's take full advantage of it. Now no can come around one legally deal with. Even at the end of the day, interest from only people are in obligation. I think that's what you must think. You may not can hurry up sign or deal with illegally to mass. And at the end of the day, you must have also only like him through interest from all. And whilst all working interest from all, interest from me must come inside. Now you may not can work him in a way that at the end of the day, only benefit people are, now you may not benefit. You may talk about sovereignty and display sovereignty. Me like him, you may look good law display. And you may work him. You blow lawyers play me, you blow talk to law is there, but inside lokai kai blow lawyer, but you may benefit or not. Foreign affairs, you play talk through, you blow surup tason na bien to alright tason. Now all some talk to where leader of opposition it touch him. All this place it's true. That's a real concern. Think him, me support him. Me like him, US must stop on him. Me no got problem with this. Me like him got direct. One and one thing more. But me like him, me look all this plus something. Make sure you may really benefit. You may not can work him all one and that's all. At the end of the day, you may not benefit. Let's really benefit out of all of this. So I'm talking to me as a province, so me go inside of this plan. Now we blow him decision, yeah. Me do not kill him something, gama. Inside long all frame I play blah. Time you play walking all ting. No can lose ting lo manus is stuff inside. Me not talk lo military base that's all long room. Me not talk lo airport that's all by using. But when I'm benefit by helping me blood to as a province. Because at the end of the day, social problems, whatever problems, all get up by me facing. Now you all get up by start here working decision that's all yana gonna pa. Now me by facing problem and the more people long. After 50 years, suppose me die na me kirap ken. By me look sab lo pace long all people long lo manu, so me no na by me pa long all meeting not of the country ken or not of the province ken. Because you play no protecting me. I think it's time when you must look at this plan. Suppose you got 5 billion, me no sabi how much billion you got. Suppose you blow all right in 5 billion, and 5 billion blow manus. Suppose you play talk illegally, you know not play me. Okay, you play negotiating one time more because me expecting him to negotiate man tab, you know legally more. But me learn this plan all sabi line blame me look long him. Me no na working plan the talk me at this time manus by establish it as all final talk me play no yet. But me play support him. Come and blame me. You may support him Papua New Guinea. You may like him, you know all get a must benefit. Country play me by Kupla, America staff me sabe by your right. But at the same time, me like him. You mean must really benefit where you mean must benefit. So I'm all little points that's all when me touch him, you meet it. You all get up by support him. Me support him agreements. But instead, you may pass the military thing. He must look to all province where he stop long him. All two he must benefit. One him kind agreement where he blow work him. Apart from military bases, now we all spend in military threat, law province threat, all by working one him can. Whereby working that eventually it's worth it. No God by blow get a hamamas, na mi plan no hamamas. Mi plan pili mo get a heavy, na mi plan stop upon it. Give me all right, all is stop. That's all good love long him, mi plan all it. So I may talk that's all that. Framework you know come inside it. Now you got skeleton detail. That's also by me discuss when him something. When him kind money, all by giving. When him kind help, all by giving. When him kind negotiations, you all kita you know sabi yet. But inside of this plot talk me, if line go pass lo, foreign affairs if line go pass lo depends. Now we set line we negotiate time you plan negotiate, you like thinking also you must benefit. Now all province must benefit out of. It's not only the military installations where you talk to all facilities you talk to, but housing only putting, college all by putting, when I'm something all by working on them so that it reduces multiple effect, social effects where you miss have by multiple benefit. But with that having said that, you get supporting them country blame me. But we must talk him some thing team law province for me because me feeling also planning time you losing province for me also legally province. You may talk to all something we go, but time you come no kai long end. Me place have miss out big time and tete me play I play me walk look me play manus look. We do not miss out on all of this because definitely interest role in whole throughout the country, but long room to play a big role to step inside law. Plan from all United States now province country blame. With that, thank you so much, Acting Speaker.
The Honourable Governor for Isipik.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker. Me too, like, support him, give him endorsement. And I just want to make this point. The United States is pursuing its national interest. Australia is pursuing its national interest. China is pursuing its national interest. So too, Papua New Guinea must pursue its national interest. You me too got right lo pursue national interest lo mipla. Mipla I apaste tasol mipla look him heavy come up tablong. Hela where Olmani kidnap him 17 pla young pla Mary. And we sit here powerless. Now inside lo thinking blo me miok lo wish osem we could have the capabilities of the US. So time samla long man or tribal terrorist or kidnap him or young plameri. Me like look him helicopter lahab with people who are appropriately trained. You may go either you may hold him all terrorist or you may kill him all too. I want the PNG government to have that capability. Some time ago me read him some all Asian vessels. Only go lo wampla island lo, konab lo million bay na, only go steal him all, sea cucumber lo hap, na only threaten him na terrorize him all people lo hap. I read about that in the newspaper and I thought to myself, if only we had the capability to go out there and protect our people. Now, you can smell him also, we have an opportunity. And I agree with some of the sentiments raised. I don't want to give up our sovereignty, like. But at the same time, I want the capability. You can see now lo here na toko, you may not like lo involve long. Fight na me long. China na America supposed to come up. Listen, there was a war in 1940. We were not involved, but it still affected us. If there is a world war tomorrow, now suppose you think was you by stop neutral, you are dreaming. That is the reason why we must pursue Papua New Guinea's national interest. We must be able to protect ourselves. There is nothing wrong with holding hands with whoever comes and says, this is what we are offering. Mipla inap lo training yupla. Mipla inap lo give him yupla desla capability. I don't know how many of you know or have taken the time, leaders. Me yet me go na me talk on them sample all officers inside the defense force. Those who were involved in these discussions for the last 4 or 5 years, or lo talk want them all American forces. Now, I don't know if you know, leaders, that the day the defense minister signed this defense cooperation agreement, the very next day, the United States of America landed some planes at Jackson's, now only unloading equipment for the PNG Defense Force. The next day, the very next day, only no wet, no kind or lilik discussion or when something, they delivered
And our defense force personnel were very, very happy. Time all defense personnel blame is Salago training. They select 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 people every year to take them out. The US has offered to train entire platoons. There's a discussion only got finished on them. All defense plus blowing black. You know, the current 2, 3 or 4 or 5, they're willing to take hundreds at one time. This is a significant upgrade. Something where you are looking before you and now by you looking. But again, the concerns raised by the leaders, we must define the terms of this engagement. Yes, you may get plenty of man or lawyer and kind of same stuff, but we also have defense professionals. And the concerns by the provinces where these operations are going to take place, Manus has a right. There's no reason why we cannot treat this the same way we treat LNG or any other significant national project. Suppose all by operate lo Manus or one and a half. Okay, make sure that the health facilities are upgraded, the schools are there. Make sure we negotiate so that the mechanics that are fixing the ships, fixing the airplanes and all those sorts of things, you may put him online, blame me go inside now, go sim training. Let's make sure that in the subsidiary agreements, we create spaces and opportunities for our people. There's nothing stopping us from doing that. You know, all got America, Baulama Maslow. All him Greece na, that is something na. You seem spana na des lakain. Well, why can't we target those sorts of things? Let's be a little bit more proactive, think beyond these framework agreements, and start to put some flesh about what we want. Because the wars of the future are going to be over resources. All by fight lo fish, all by fight lo ground, all by fight lo territory. And if we don't have the capability in 15 years to be able to defend our territory, we've lost it already. And the only way we're going to do that is with a very professional defense force. That's the only way we're going to do it. We are described as a weak state because we cannot project the power of the state. Time all bigot man, all terrorists about the go na kidnap him, all man, rape him, all marry, we can't do anything. You miss in Amstapia, all we can do is protest in the street. We don't have the ability to project the power of the state. Every state in the world reserves the right to use its power to protect its citizens. We are incapable. It's as simple as that. You miss a Yamanim Yumi yet or same Yumi country, but the ability to push in power blaming ogat. Mouse yes. I believe we need a 20 to 30,000 strong military with professional capability. Everything that professional forces around the world are operating, our men and women should be able to operate those same systems. Because that is our national interest. You mean no Wampla, Kago Kalto, Banana Republic, we are a country. We are not a taka box. This is the reason why it is important that everybody that is going to take care of the subsidiary agreements must start to look at what we want into the future. Build that into the agreements. I'm sure the Americans are not going to argue if we say, look, we want 20,000 of our young men and women studying in America as part of this agreement. I'm sure they're not going to say no to that. So we have to be thinking like this. What is good for Papua New Guinea? How can we include that so that there is significant outcome from this agreement? The first fight, you mean, Sawe Longem and Cain want them able to play fight. That was thousands of years ago. Men, by our nature, will continue to be involved in wars and killing one another. I'm you mean not stopping me up. Jesus will come back. That's inbuilt. What we want is to ensure that there is order in our country. What we want is that one and a half territory where only drawing border na tokem bloyumiya, that remains ours. What we want is that those who live in those borders are accorded the rights and privileges of citizenship. So time heavy come up. You mean on a parim, say Peter come na complain lo here. You mean yet no na cross namelo, you mean yet no government, what's up na to, what's happening, what's happening? Who said by going to save him all this 17 black girls? We still don't have an answer today. Me like him, defense minister or NEC, you play by sit down and talk. Deploying this special force unit, blow you me. I want us to be able to do that. I want our women and girls to feel safe that their country is going to respond when their security is being taken away, when they are being raped constantly by men who don't care. Me like him, government masigat ability logona. Rescue him, this people blame me. Something we don't have at the moment. Now I remember some time ago in the last parliament, said Julius is not here, the last man standing. He was sitting in that seat over there, and he spoke to our prime minister, and he said this. He said, "What are you afraid of?" And he repeated himself about 4 or 5 times. What are you afraid of? So I want to repeat that here. What are we afraid of? This world is changing. Things are happening, whether we like it or not. What we need most is the ability to respond, something that we don't have. So, me yet, time me look lo ship rider agreement, na me look him title blongem straight and tokolsem. This is to counter illicit transnational maritime operations. Right now, we don't know how much fish is being taken out of our waters by anybody who wants to. Also, just come to Sodaxim. We have no ability to protect that. And that's been going on for the last 40 years. It needs to stop. The only way we are going to do that is by holding hands with friends. Who is a friend? A friend is someone who comes in and makes you strong, not weakens you. This year, I see America offering a hand to make us strong. That is what I see. We can argue about the details, the finer points. That's all. Time me looking strong plahani come. Inside lo bel blow me. I want to make my country strong. That's what I want. I want my country to be strong so that it can protect its people. Yes, you may got concern lo neighbors blow you me. We are useless to our neighbors if we remain weak. Only by becoming strong can we stand up for the Pacific. Right now we can't. We don't have the ability. And I think the Pacific will respect us if we take the path that makes us strong. Not strong so that Yumi can go na come up in Birua, but strong so that when the situation demands us to respond, Papua New Guinea can take its rightful place amongst the brother nations of the world and respond. We are like beggars right now. I don't know about all of you, taso minos alagi desla. Yumi back right all time flaggy fly na, kumulsi play na. You know, that's not good enough. I want to be able to stand up and say, okay, former Prime Minister talk, yeah, we are big everything. Yes, we are big everything. But we are big nothing, too. And that's not good enough. This week, I'm going to send the first CIPICs to go down and work in Australia. Because I want opportunities for the CIPIC people. When I see the United States offering its hand to strengthen us, I see opportunity. Not just for CIPIC people. I see opportunity for all Papua New Guineans. Nami manwe misa mangalim opportunity. Because I believe true freedom, true empowerment, true development is the ability to access opportunity. In all the things we do as a parliament, as leaders, it must be that we continue to seek opportunities for our people. So, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Acting Speaker, me support him, walk where government is walking. On behalf of the CPIC people, I give the endorsement, and I say if there are things that need to be tweaked and made better, you play all get all Papua New Guineans, you play walking walk, you play by sit down in the front, put your country first, pursue our national interest, and make sure we create opportunities for our young people into the future. Thank you, Mr. Acting Speaker.
The question is that a question be put. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Acting Speaker, me like ask him leave long. If me can ask him a question, lo chair.
The clerk to seek clarification on your.
Mr. Acting Speaker, through you, Chair, just for purpose of parliamentary decorum, numbers been present on the floor. Me'll ask him if, through you, Acting Speaker, you may can seek him concurrence block court blame me. Acting Speaker, time you look him all members in the Senate, no minimum or less lo Senate lo Parliament. Mr. Acting Speaker, plenty got court petition. Na this la rule blow. All members must appear lo court. Have no good plan of parliamentary debate. Where you make all issues of national significance kind of some now you may debate in DCA. Plenty issue is stop. Na time all forced or asked to be physically present in courthouse. And you can look at number and drop in debates. And those leaders are supposed to represent the people on the floor. So when we say in the interest of Westminster system, where members are supposed to be here and Parliament takes precedence, where does the definition lie where court ask them all to be present in courtroom and they can be on the floor as well? So maybe through office per speaker, you can check him. Because I'm greatly affecting the ability of members to be present here on the floor to debate one, RM discussions, participate in decision-making process, vote on legislations, many other issues below parliamentary business. So through you, Acting Speaker, if you can seek him through the office block clerk or deputy clerk and through the office of the speaker, ask him if on parliamentary dates, court could adjust the dates so that members don't need to appear physically as they've been asked to appear. And many of our members were looking name lo appear lo paper na. People think was a mimiles lo come lo parliament. No, people make him kind something lo come lo floor. And we want to be here. But those type of situations beyond our control, and I've had few members expressing their apologies that they couldn't be here. And I think it goes to affect the debate and the level of discussion and participation on this floor. So through your office, if you can ask him court law, readjust him schedule so non-sitting days, court block and non-sitting days, Parliament takes proceeding blow this law. So, Mr. Speaker, this law request me put him to you. Also, me like ask him if he can look him standing orders blame Mr. Acting Speaker. Say for example, as Misirano Sam 5 or 6 years now, suppose you blow man where you talk na contribute to debate. You know, can stand up no go because you talk finish. So you two must sit on RM debate with Narpa leaders. You know, good blood time. Me plus sit on RM, you talk. Na time lo me plus talk, you go na. Me plus talk lo said. Me plus leader too no. Manmerista want me plus too. So some of these standing orders law, if you're given the privilege by the chair to be able to speak, and other leaders give you the respect and listen to you, you must offer the same respect and sit and listen to them. You know, when talk doesn't you go na. Mibla tok lo siya blio na ino you. So if standing House Committee na through you, Acting Speaker, you can look at Islam, you can make some adjustments. So we have all chairs been occupied on the floor. So debates are fairly respect is given on over the Islam. Before we move the Jimmy Jen, Mr. Acting Speaker, me like Eddie Wapla think Timblomilo this debate because as leader of government business, I'm always the last person to attend debates, and sometimes I get disadvantage of not contributing to debates. And I think it's equally fair that this law argument should be put in.
Honorable Minister of Government Business, I entertain your question on leave on the comments you raised. In debate to what has already been debated, the question has already been put, and House has agreed. I would not allow you to debate on the statement that is already been debated. Honourable Minister, the debate has been adjourned to another days of debate. So if it is on, you can.
Next week.
Honourable Leader of Government Business, I'd like to make a ruling on your leave that you've been sick on the chair. I will refer, it will be noted, and the clerks will look into that matter, and we address that matter. I think it affects much of you members. Myself as the chair, you've seen me as choosing chair today. I have to attend to court too, so that matter is important, and it is noted the Parliament will look into that and report back to Parliament. In order of members leaving Parliament, when after making speeches, I think honourable members, I've made that mention to all you members already. We cannot restrict your movement in and out of the Parliament, but you have to know that you are here to represent your people, and when you stand to make a debate, please sit back and listen to others who make a debate. That is more important to all of us in this House. You are elected to be in this House, and this the Parliament session take precedence over many other things that you have. So that is noted also. Honourable Governor, what's your point of order?
Concern raised by the Leader of the Government Business is genuine. Fortunately, no Morobins is challenging my election victory, fortunate. So I'm not required to be in court, but for many of you, I feel sorry for you. Therefore, I want to put it on record, Mr. Speaker, maybe the Leader of Government Business can take note, and that is, you proposed the urgent amendment to the National Court Act and the Supreme Court Act, so that we can amend there, get the Parliament to pass the amendment that when the members are in court, they should not, in Parliament, they should not be in court. We just need a voice. We'll pass it on voices because there's a principle, two principal acts in existence. So can you get the lawyers to get the bill through Parliament?
Honourable Governor, I think the Chair have already made the ruling. The Leader of Government Business have raised the concern. The clerks have taken note, and whatever step forward as what you have proposed, we will bring that to the House in a further days of session. Leader of Government Business.
Speaker, what I was just going to say was, for issues such as this DCA, let's encourage free debate on the floor, so we can be able to thresh out issues, and when we are settled with the issues, I think our people will be able to understand the issues even more better. And then suppose you a genuine debate or you making awesome, then our frustrations we go and talk on social media or any other platforms outside of this also. It's good to have debates here so that you may address me and our people can be more clarified on issues such as this. So I just wanted to say that we have to encourage more debates on issues. So everything you make at Lobel, you may trout him, you may finish him, no, people will be too good blotting thing. So that was my point I was trying to make. Acting Speaker, through you, me like move us and me genuine. Parliament go tomorrow 10 a.m. Thank you.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I have it. Honourable members, I now adjourn Parliament to tomorrow 10 o'clock a.m.